Hello, I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to
He's going to break his world title.
These two go.
Ewan's going to do it, his first victory.
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been.
Hello everybody and welcome to Istanbul Park as we go racing for round number 7 of the Formula SimRacing World Championship for 2024. 58 laps around this 14-corner racetrack that hasn't seen Formula SimRacing action for 7 years. Back in 2017, it was Mohammed Patel who took the win by just 3.2 seconds in a very close race that could have seen it go any of 4 or 5 ways, maybe. Well, this year, it's a close championship that we've got to look forward to that maybe we didn't quite have all those years ago. Yannick Botker and Owen McGorgy separated by just 6 points after a dramatic San Marino Grand Prix back in May. We've had our longest break since the season began back in Bahrain at the start of March. It's the more spaced out part of the season, in all honesty, but the finale will come round very, very quickly indeed. We're 2 months and 2 days away from our finale in Japan. It's really time to point towards the front of the standings and the end of the season. My name's Ewan. I'm alongside Zach Sweeney for the first time this season in the World Championship, and it is an exciting proposition here, Zach. There's drivers up the front who have never won the Formula SimRacing World Championship before. In fact, the top 6 have never won it before. I would argue the top 6 have never really been contenders at all. It's a bizarre season, but a very, very entertaining one, and there's only 4 rounds left of it.
Well, that's what we want, isn't it? That uncertainty, that unpredictability, the newcomers rising their way through. And I say newcomers, to be fair, a lot of them are already very esteemed in the world of sim racing, already got a plethora of experience, and are now starting to finally show their potential. That is how close it is. Trading wins all the way through the season, and hopefully what's going to be a fantastic final 4 rounds.
Yeah, it was round number 3 at Hockenheim back at the end of March, the last time somebody else won. That was Rd.7, although he's only got 1 point out the last 2 rounds. So there's your 6-point margin. Jake Dennehan, fresh off a win in the Virtual Endurance Championships 24 Hours of Le Mans, is 3rd for the very same team. Janis Braxok is 4th, although starting to slip too far behind to really be a factor, as is Manuel Biancalillo with only 3 points in the last 2 rounds. Jan Crankvist has gone from championship leader to mid-table very quickly, unfortunately. 1 point ahead of Rd.7. Then it's Mitchie Hoyer who's been making some strides in the recent weeks, with Dennis Jordan and Sander Callas rounding out the top 10. So that's how we stand going into this round. Spa, USA and Japan still to go. Some iconic circuits, but a return to the United States at circuits we don't often see. I believe it's COTA this year, isn't it? Where we're racing at the American Grand Prix. So looking forward to seeing what we're going to get round there. But for the most part, otherwise, Spa and Japan, 2 iconic circuits that we're not going to have any surprises from in terms of their layouts. We should hopefully get good races from them, though. It does feel as well like Istanbul is one of those circuits where you're not really surprised by anything that you see round here, to be honest, because everybody knows their way around here, even though it's not very often used in sim racing anymore.
No, it's not, but it's one of those sort of driver favourite, fan favourite circuits in the world of obviously F1 and things like that. Everyone loves Istanbul, the iconic turn 8, that quadruple left-hander, and of course that fantastic race that we had a few years ago in Formula 1. Everyone loves Istanbul, and of course all of these drivers are going to be familiar with it, but it's all good knowing your way around the circuit. It's another thing entirely to conquer it in a grid as competitive as this, nailing the strategy, overtaking your way through, maintaining that consistency, and then of course making sure that you are very much up to the pace, because if there's one championship you cannot have an off day, it is certainly the Formula SimRacing World Championship.
Fortunately, there's been a couple of off days recently for the 4-time world champion, Rd.7. He was looking to possibly equal a record, but it's not going to happen, I don't think, this season, as he goes only 13th in this qualifying session. And in any case, it wouldn't be quite 5 in a row like Bono Houseman is, but nevertheless, it's still a very impressive record. So there you go. But 13th at the moment in this session for him. Martin Mergley only down in 20 seconds. He's the only driver who hasn't set a time just yet. Jake Dennehan is quickest at the moment. the top two in the championship, currently 3rd and 6th with McGorgy on the right side of that at the moment. Wonder how important qualifying is going to be today, because it's not one of those circuits that's traditionally really difficult to overtake on, but I wonder how difficult these drivers will find it today.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, actually. Of course, it's a circuit we've not raced at for a good 7 years in this particular championship. I don't ever actually remember commentating a race at Istanbul, I've got to be honest. Which just goes to show how uncommon it is, I suppose, to see it in the world of sim racing. It might not have been a circuit that any of these guys have raced at as well. So again, learning that race dynamic, learning where you can and can't get moves done. Of course, these FSR cars very, very fast. You're not really on the brakes for too long, even in some of the sort of the heavy braking zones as well. But very fast circuit is Istanbul, and of course couple that with the hybrid deployment that they do get. I believe it's 100 seconds over the duration of a race that they can use, or something in that vein as well. So that is going to be something to add to the mix. But nonetheless, you don't really want to take any chances. The best thing you can do is start as far forward as you can.
For anyone who remembers the 2017 race, by the way, Zach told me beforehand he started secondary school when this was going on around that time.
Which
is that what you said?
12, yeah.
Yeah, 12. No, that's good. Anyway, but sorry to anyone who was in that race. I'm not entirely sure if there's many people in this race who was in that one. Ewan Simicic was. He finished 3rd that day. Michi Hoyer finished 5th. I'm looking down the order. I don't think we've got any others. Oh, Giordano Valeriano finished 18th. But other than that, I think everybody else is on doing different things, or maybe not even sim racing at all anymore. Yep. Which is entirely possible. It was 7 years ago. It just shows the longevity, though, of Ewan Simicic, doesn't it? We do often say this, but he is a stalwart of the FSR series. It felt a bit weird without him in 2022, in all honesty, even though we got one of the best championship fights we've ever seen. Just feels a little bit weird without him, and what feels even weirder, I've got to say, even weirder than him not being here, is him not winning very often. Only 1 win so far this season, only 2 podiums. It's very unusual for Ewan Simicic.
It really is, considering he's off the back, of course, getting 3 over the duration of last year en route to his 4th World Championship. He's one of those names, right? He's just so familiar, always at the front, not just for FSR, but sort of rFactor 2 in general at the front level. We see Ewan Simicic in the VEC, Formula E Accelerate, of course, he was the champion of that over the duration of 2023 as well. It's just strange to see him have an off year, because it's, you know, we associate this championship with just Ewan Simicic at the very least being at the front, if not winning, you know, podiums, top 2s, whatever. But unfortunately, yeah, he's not quite been able to break the top 6. I mean, to be fair, he is very close. A top 5 in this championship is still very, very possible. But Ewan Simicic, and oh goodness me, that is one way to round off the back end of qualifying for Michi Hoyer. That's only going to be 16th place, which is of course not great for him. But well, he'll be the one to prove how overtakeable Istanbul is, I suppose.
Yes, that was quite spectacular. The fire in rFactor 2, by the way, is very impressive. Flamboyant, I guess, is the word too. Ewan Simicic goes up to the line now. Put a couple of personal best sectors, but only up to 12 because of the time gap that he had in front. Although he's only 4 tenths away from pole. That just shows you again how this qualifying session is. As Jan Krankvist is now making his way towards the final corners. He's 6th in the standings at the moment after a great start to the season where he was first in the championship after the Australian Grand Prix. He's failed to finish in the top 5 since then, and that's where you really need to be because Yannick Bock, for example, has only finished outside the top 5 once this season, and that has got him a championship lead with 4 rounds to go. It's looking very close, though, between himself and Owen McGorgy, who moved up to 2nd. It's an all-race clutch front row at the moment. They're the team's championship leaders with a pretty big margin. They're probably going to take it. They can't seal it today, but may well do next time round. And it's looking comfortable for Race Clutch, who are on top of rFactor 2 at the moment, really.
Yeah, they are. Of course, literally today they wrapped up their 2nd consecutive Virtual Endurance Championship Division 1 title. Of course, got it last year. They got their 2nd consecutive and 3rd total Le Mans victory in the VEC as well. And then they come into this and are looking very secure. Not today, but definitely taking, well, at the very least, one hand onto the trophy going into the final 3 rounds on the Team Championship for this one. And still, 2 of the, they've got 2 drivers inside the top 3, one of whom is only 6 points off the championship lead. So Race Clutch, I don't know what it is about them, but they just have such an esteemed lineup. They're so consistent. Everything seems to be in tune with them. They are the benchmark at the moment for rFactor 2.
Through the final sector now comes Isaac Killison, who was also driving in the Virtual Endurance Championship earlier on this weekend. Wonder how tired he'll be after Ferrari's efforts in LMP2. Did they win in the end, Zach?
P2, it was Team Iris that took the win.
Oh, wow. Well done, Team Iris. It was a very close race all the way through.
As well.
Okay.
I think it was a decent margin as well for Iris.
Oh, there you go. That brought their winning streak to an end then, I suppose. But nevertheless, Hillison was doing plenty of driving there and now goes up to 15th, having replaced Alex Siebel in that team. Here's Manuel Biancalilla up towards the line right now. Needs to get his form back on track, really, after 2 consecutive races outside the top 10. He improves his time, but not his position. Looking to see where the next improvements are going to come from here. It's looking unlikely that we're going to see too many as the seconds tick by and the session comes to a close very nearly.
Yeah, very much towards the tail end. Let's see what Pascal can do across the line. It wasn't an improvement in the end. Of course, the white sector dictates they're slower than their personal best. A green means it is a PB. And then, of course, purple means a session best sector or lap. So for Pascal, it's going to round off in P12. But Jone Simoncic improves to the first sector. Slower initial first sectors for the top 2 in qualifying. Biancalilla is out. Bratshock is there with the green middle sector. It's all so close that even the most minor of improvements can improve your position.
Yeah, and that might be the case for Jarl Tyne as well, stepping in for Stavros Mutzadis today, and I've got to say, immediately qualifying a little bit better than him. Out of the final corner for Jarl Tyne, a couple of purple, or personal bests, I should say, in the first part of the lap, and a great final sector gets him up to 3rd place. A great improvement from Jarl Tyne, who's right up there, involved in the podium place conversation. Mitchy Hoyer with a couple of personal bests as well in the first 2 sectors goes up to 16th place. Yannick Bock not improving really. The championship leader slipping and sliding a little bit in recent weeks. He's qualified in 7th place, and that would be a worry with his championship rival Owen McGorgy in 2nd.
Yeah, he's going to be hoping that there's going to be ground to make up in the race, that the overtake ability is decent, but that's how they rack up race clutch 1 and 2.
They will share the front row ahead of Jarl Tyne on his first appearance this season. Jonas Braksok is 4 for Brabham ahead of Manuel Biancalilla. Tom Stevens is in for Super Venturi today in place of Jukka-Pekka Lalu. He qualifies 6th ahead of championship leader Yannick Bock. Kostas van Bucas gets 2 Netrex cars inside the top 8 with Sergio Fletcher and Jan Grankvist rounding out the top 10. Those last 2 setting the same time, indeed. Jone Simoncic outside of the top 10, but ahead of Giordano Valeriano. Christian Pasquale is at the wheel of one of the Go Team cars, standing in for Matthias Stair today in 13th place. Sander Callas and Isaac Killison round out the top 15 with Mitchell Hoyer down in 16th. Dennis Jordan down in 17th. 3 surprises in a row there, you could say. Marcin Mergli for Brabham's down in 18th. Better Philip Pushka, Stoyan Barbakov rounds out the top 20. And then George Argianis and Cosmo Pasuto who round out the grid. Although everybody within a second kind of says a lot about the closeness of the field top to bottom in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship, really, and hopefully that means we're going to get a close race as well, because not even the entire field being covered by a second impressive. The amount of drivers who got within a 10th of pole there was very impressive too.
It was. The contention that we have in this field is astonishing. Everything is so close and compact, and there will be quite a heavy focus on strategy as well. A 2-stop is possible, but the general consensus as well is going to probably be leaning towards a 3-stop, but maybe we could see some risk takers in the mix. The unknown that is Istanbul Park, at least for a lot of the drivers on the grid, all but 3 I think we concluded were not on the grid the last time we took here. So it is all new, but the preparation will have been done. How raceable is it going to be? How many moves can be made? But all in all, I mean, a second covering 22 drivers is remarkable and something that is rarely ever boasted, really. How well that's going to translate into race pace, we'll have to wait and see. But it's not even like Istanbul is an easy circuit as well. It's quite complex, which just makes that even more impressive that there's so little between so many.
Yeah, very impressive indeed. As we get into warm-up now, by the way, 90 seconds remaining in that. Wonder what Yannick Bock's going to be thinking at the moment. He took a bit of a points hit last round. Owen McGorgy getting first place points, of course. 25, i.e. And then Yannick Bock getting just the 12. That's a 13-point loss for Owen McGorgy. For Yannick Bock on that occasion. That brought the gap down to just 6 points. And if they end as they are, then McGorgy would not only take that 6-point advantage, but he'd get his own 6-point advantage. He'd be in the lead. So I wonder what Yannick Bok's going to be thinking here, whether it's going to be a case of, oh dear, maybe I haven't got the pace here today and I could lose the championship lead at worst. Or is it a case of, well, my race pace is better and he'll be relying on that race pace to bring himself up a few places and back closer to where he needs to be, up towards the front?
You don't ever want to go into a race doubting yourself. You always want to go in with an optimistic mind, a glass half full sort of mindset. And that's what he's going to want to have is, okay, qualifying's done. And you just have to start blank. You just have to start fresh. You forget about qualifying. You look in the present in the race and you treat it as, okay, I'm starting P7. What can I do with that? How far forward can I get? Is it a case of, all right, well, I'm going to try and gain some places, going to try and get after McGorgy and extend the gap? Or is it a case of, I'm just going to try and limit the damage? This late on in the season, though, again, you're constantly worrying about points. You're trying to do those mental calculations in your head. But at the end of the day, the simple fact is you get as quickly as you can, you make up as many places as you can, and you score as many points as you can. But there are still other opportunities for it to happen. He's got it all to lose with not too much to gain. So again, he's got to push hard while also not throwing it away, because it's so easy to lose so many points and yet so difficult to gain very little.
And so much to gain for Jake Dennehan as well, by the way. 2 second places in the last 2 rounds after missing the Singapore Grand Prix, which was really quite damaging to him. But he's only 24 points off the championship lead at the moment. If this was the final round, he would be a mathematical contender. I just wonder whether the momentum is maybe with him a little bit here in the field. We'll wait and see as we get a reminder of the live standings there. The top 10 on the right-hand side. It's very, very close between those front 3, I would argue, who are still involved. If they want to be involved by the end of the season, those drivers who are in 4th to 9th place, going all the way down to Dennis Jordan, really need to, at the very least, get on the podium today and hope that things go wrong for those ahead of them in the championship. We're getting to that stage in the season where you're almost too close to the end to really make up too much time. Only 100 points still available after this one, including this race, I should say, as well as that. That's not very many realistically, so we're really starting to think about the end of the season, even if I do that right from the very start, but that's fine. It's really crunch time now, and a very important start coming up for Yannick Bok here in about 5 minutes' time.
I mean, it's always good in some capacity to be mindful of the long term of things, even at the very start of the season, because if you get off to a slow start and it's like, oh, well, it's fine, it's the start of the season, we've still got so long left to go, then when you get to this point in the season, around 7, 8, 9, 10, and you look back and you think, well, hang on, if I'd have just got a better start to the season, I could have gained an extra 5 points here, 6 points here, an extra couple of places here, and then you do yourself so many more favours later on in the championship just by trying to start nice and strong. Of course, it's not a guarantee because the top 2 in the championship were outside the top 5 at the first round of the season, but let's see what's in store in Istanbul because, well, it's an exciting prospect.
Yep, it's an all-race cut front row. Dennehan ahead of McGorgy with Jorg Tyen and Jonas Braksuk on that second row. Manuel Biancalula, 5th place in the championship, 5th place in that qualifying session, ahead of Tom Stevens for Super Venturi. Yannick Bok, championship leader, starts 7th, ahead of Kostas Van Vukas. Running up the top 10 is Sergio Fletcher and Jan Granqvist, who's not been in the top 5 since Australia. It's Jone Simicic and Giordano Valeriano next in 11th and 12th. Valeriano looking for his first points since the British Grand Prix. Christian Pascal is 13th ahead of Sander Kallas with Isaac Kirsten, and then Mitty Hoyer in 16th place, one of the very few drivers to have scored points in every race so far this season, and indeed finished in the top 10. Dennis Jordan and Martin Mergli are next ahead of Philip Pushka and Stoyan Barbakov, who's down in 20th place. And then rounding out the grid, George Ardianis and Cosmo Prosciutto, the American former Pro Series champion, looking to add to his tally of just 5 points that he's got so far for Go Team, who had a quite remarkable Imola, I'm about to say Imola Grand Prix, that's not right. San Marino Grand Prix, I should say.
Go for the full name.
Oh no, let's not do that. Thankfully we don't do that in FSR, but goodness me, yeah, you're not wrong. So the drivers make their way down towards the final sector now. I think it's fair to say that a few iconic moments have happened down here, although Zach won't remember them, probably. Maybe he knows about them. We'll find out. But we'll not trust that tyre graphic on the left-hand side just too much for the moment. But it looks like the general consensus is staying away from the soft tyres, if that's to be believed.
Yeah, of course, it's going to be, like I said earlier, they're going to be aiming for a 3-stop, maybe hoping for a 2. I'm guessing that's 2 sets of hards and 1 set of mediums, as opposed to maybe going medium, hard at the end. I'm not entirely sure as to what they're aiming for, but yeah, no one touching the softs. It seems like the tyre wear is going to be quite strict. Track temp just under 26 degrees, which isn't the highest, but again, not exactly the coldest in the world either, and those softs are going to be probably ripped through very quickly. Mediums is the go-ahead for the most part, but again, a couple of people on hard, so I think tyre strategy is going to be one to watch as we watch the race progress.
Yeah, certainly. As we look at the drivers pulling into position now. Jake Dennehan on the pole, ahead of Owen McGorgy in that second position. Also second in the championship, of course, is Owen, as the lights come on now for the Turkish Grand Prix. It's round 7 of the 2024 World Championship, and we get underway with a good start for Jake Dennehan. He fires it down in towards turn number 1 in the lead ahead of his teammate. Then it's Owen McGorgy. Jonas Braxok gets into 3rd place ahead of Manuel Biancalilla, who stays 4th. Then Yol Tyen, who is right alongside him but can't get back through into that position. Yannick Bock right in the traffic here, not where you want to be as a championship leader, in the danger zone, round the outside, gives him the inside for the next couple of corners at turn 5 and 6. Yannick Bock still racing here for 6th position on the start.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be losing any more momentum than he currently has. Very late on the brakes, sweeps his way around the outside and keeps himself inside the top 6, but he cannot afford to go backwards. Side by side, a little bit further back, Pascal versus Callis. They're all trying to work their way through into turn 8 for the first time, and, well, the general consensus is no looks around the outside. So far, so good, though, at the front. A fairly tame start here at Turkey.
Jake Dennehan retains his 1st position after his 5th pole position in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. He leads by just about half a second ahead of Owen McGorgy. Then it's Jonas Braxok, Manuel Biancalilla, Yol Tyen in the top 5. Then the championship leader Yannick Bock in 6th place. Stevens, then Costas Van Vukas in 8th place as they work their way down in towards turn 12. Biggest braking zone on this circuit, being utilised by some in the midfield. One notable entry into the top 10 is Jurnej Simoncic, who's gotten past Sergio Fletcher most recently, and he's into 9th.
Yeah, Simoncic, as per usual, not the strongest in qualifying, but definitely makes up for it in the race, and is so far making up some good ground early on, picking his moments, choosing the gaps wisely, and working his way through. Now the first lap is done and dusted. You've got to focus in getting settled in, find a rhythm that works for you, find a pack that works for you, and just, again, find that consistent rhythm, find that pace, and work your way through quite nicely, because it's so easy to get caught out and continue to make mistakes as the race develops. But I think for Simoncic, there's a lot of potential in this race. He's ticked off the first thing, which is to gain places off the first lap, and now he needs to work forward. Plenty he can do from here.
Let's see, as we get this race underway, already breaks in the field, and it's Yol Tyen who's creating one of them. You can see him having started from 4th position, already lost a place. Well, he's further up than that, isn't he? Wasn't he? He's now down to 5th position and 3.5 seconds off the back for Netrex. There's the gap. He's not going to be in DRS range by any means. Manuel Biancalilla isn't in DRS range either, and so it's really about the front 3 who are breaking away. This is bad news for everybody, really, but not least Yannick Bock, the championship leader, who's seeing his title rival up the road with a teammate to help and a DRS advantage over him effectively by breaking away in this front 3.
Yeah, it's crunch time for Yannick Bock at the bare minimum. He needs to make the most of the next couple of laps just to make sure they don't run away too soon, because if they do, DRS and they work together, pull away, it's going to be so much harder to close that gap because he's got no one up there really to assist him in it. So now is the time to use a bit of hybrid, close that gap, work with Biancalilla and Braxok and get on to the top 2 before it potentially gets too late. Martin Maguli a little bit further back is in a bit of a train with Michi Hoyer leading the way before a gap up to Sander Callis, but at the moment going to be taking a single point. Dennis Jordan, Isaac Gillison, both of the Ferraris completely out of position, it must be said, for drivers of their standard. They are not going to want to be sitting outside the points for too much longer.
Unfortunately, we had our first retirement of the race, and it's a DNS for Jan Granqvist, I'm afraid, who disconnected at the worst possible time. Unfortunately, that run of staying outside the top 5 is going to continue to 5 races now for Jan Granqvist, and he will drop down some championship places as well, you would have thought, at the end of this race. Front 3 still running away with the lead. Jake Dennehan taking his 5th pole position in Formula Sim Racing World Championship history earlier on today, and now he's leading laps all over again. But Owen McGorgy would like to take the lead off him, decides not to, and this is where the teamwork comes into it. Who do you want to lead the field around? Who's better leading the field around? Well, Jake Dennehan clearly believes it's him for the moment, and Owen McGorgy agrees because he wasn't too aggressive on the way towards turn 12 that time.
Yeah, not entirely sure. I think there was a spin going into this final chicane.
Yeah.
It might well have been Pushka and Prosciutto. Of course, we'll update you. No, it was Zalagianis, who still seems to be struggling. Give the tyres to cook. Let's take another look as to what happened. There's always a pinch zone, particularly with how big that pack is at the back.
Let's have a look what happened here. This is a look on board with Zalagianis, who dives deep on the brakes and just makes side-to-side contact. I think it was one of those where he was, it just missed the apex slightly, and so the contact made helped him spin. It wasn't with his no, not teammates, excuse me, but he was quite a long way from the apex there, and I don't think we'll have too many complaints about that one.
Yeah, he's just got to be careful. It's one of those unfortunate mistakes. Bit too late on the brakes. Unfortunate contact that he just caught at the wrong angle. Instead of bouncing off, unfortunately, it just unsettled the car and sent him into a bit of a spin. But he'll be glad to have no damage. The unfortunate thing is those tyres are going to be rising in temperature. Should only be surface, so they should be able to cool down provided he doesn't continue to overdrive the car. Just got to settle back in, find a rhythm and get back into it, because battles will happen in front. Plenty open doors in terms of strategy and a swap at the front. I think McGorgy and Dennehan working together nicely. It seems that with DRS, it's better to just to do the swap.
Teammates working together well on the way down towards turn 12 at Istanbul, would you believe it? Owen McGorgy takes the lead. Well done, I'm glad you laughed. Owen McGorgy takes the lead over Jake Dennehan and then Jonas Braksok. A bit of a gap back to Manuel Biancalula, who's heading the next train with Yartan, Yannick Bock, Todd Stevens and Kostas Van Vukas. I'm so close to saying Will Stevens every time. I apologise if I do at any point. That's not what I mean. Then we've got the next group on the road for 8th place. Van Vukas are heading the group with, well, he's not even heading the group, is he, to be honest? He's got away from Sergio Fletcher, who is the one heading this next group. This is painful, I feel, when you're in the middle of a group like this. Say you're a Michi Hoyer, a Sander Callas maybe in this group. You're in the middle, you've got no direction about what is going on ahead of you. You're just stuck losing time. This is what happened to Sergio Fletcher as he was trying to overtake Jurne Simoncic, this looks like. And he has broken quite late, but he made it work. So that was a good move. I was expecting something to go wrong there, but no. Sergio Fletcher just making a nice move, and it seems that Jurne Simoncic was part of creating that gap, which surprises me.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair play to Sergio Fletcher there. I was expecting him just to lock up and go completely straight on, and Simoncic to get back through, but broke nice and late, of course, with the overspeed with the DRS, and found his way through. But yeah, I think because of the battling and the gap opening, Simoncic thought that there was no point fighting with Fletcher at all, and it's better just to sit back, again, work together, close that gap up in front. Otherwise, they cap themselves and they create this ceiling for themselves, because like I said earlier on, with Bock trying to stay with the front pack, as soon as DRS is enabled and they use hybrid and work together and get further and further away, it just becomes harder and harder to re-close that gap. But thankfully, I think the gap between Biancalilla and Braksok is sort of fairly stabilised, but still not within DRS range. So for Tien and Bock, it gets to a point where, at what point do they start getting frustrated? At what point do they want to start pushing, maybe force a move on Biancalilla to try and close that gap? Because at the moment, he's not doing much for the group as a whole and just needs that little bit of an extra push to get him into DRS range so they can latch onto the rear wing and reel the front three in.
It depends really whether this is a case of people getting held up, though, because if everyone is at their limit, if you like, at this stage, just trying to hang on to those front three, who are, by the way, driving at a very nice pace at the moment, and are stronger than the others, you would say. 29.2 last time round from Owen McGorgy, for example. Just wonder whether there isn't actually anything that these other guys can do at the moment, and they can't actually go any quicker. It could just be down to the pace of those at the front of the field that they're just not able to keep up with at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. That is firmly a possibility. Might just be the case that the front three are looking very quick, which, you know, wouldn't surprise me at all. Of course, Jake Dennehan and his VEC campaign ended yesterday, is to make sure he's prepped and ready and rested for today, because he's got races to win and a potential championship to charge for as well. Not not necessarily just for the drivers, but race culture as well. And as things stand, we'll be scoring maximum points to give them the best chance to seal it when we head to Spa in a couple of weeks' time. Here's the fight a bit further back. This is on the fringes of the top 10. Of course, we've got Christian Pascal on the back. Oh, I say on the back. He's trailing Ioannis Simičić by about 7 tenths or so. Still within the DRS range, but teetering on the edge of that as Simičić tries to work with close in on Van Vukas. We're taking our way through that quite nicely, and something else has happened further back.
Yep, this is what happened. Christian Pascal down the inside of, not Mauro Biancalilla, but Giordano Valeriano in the other Team VM car. So that was the pass for 11th place for the reserve driver, Christian Pascal, getting in for Matthias Ster, as I mentioned earlier on. Matthias Ster in the championship stakes is down in 19th place at the moment. He did score a few points to his tally at the San Marino Grand Prix last time out, but has been replaced for this one. Not sure whether he just can't be here or whatever, but he's evidently not on the list for tonight. Lap 7 of 58 here this evening. If we're thinking about 3-stop races here, Zach, then we're pretty much halfway through a stint. Obviously, these guys aren't going to cut it into quarters in exactly. First of all, because you can't, but second of all, because that's pretty illogical in a series where you have to use multiple tyre compounds throughout a race. But we are getting to that stage already where some of these drivers could be halfway, maybe more than halfway through their opening stint as the medium compound tyres begin to wear. They are the softer of the compounds that we've got on. In fact, only 3 drivers haven't got them on for the moment, and no soft tyre runners in the field either. But if 2 tyre stops are going to be, or 2 stops I should say, definitely not 2 tyre stops, 2 stops throughout the race going to be the consensus, then we could be seeing this first stint settle in for quite some time yet.
Potentially so. Those on the hards, of course, will be probably looking, I'd say, maybe to go to lap 20, 21, 22, maybe. Not entirely sure as to when the cliff is to drop off. If they are doing 3 stops, that's 4 stints. Round up to 60 laps, that's 15 laps a stint. So we are about halfway through what would be if they're aiming for that 3 stop. Here's Yartien moving his way past Biancalilla and up into P4. I don't think that was too hard fought from Biancalilla, but Tien didn't do himself any favours by running it in deep. In the end, though, was able to maintain track position and is now going to try and do his best to chase forward and get onto the top 3. That's a statement of intent, and now he's got to prove that, he can justify making that overtake by closing in onto the top 3.
Yeah, it's an odd hairpin, isn't it, down at turn 12, I find, because it's not quite double apex, it's not long enough for that, but it is a bit weird. It's slightly fatter, if I could use that, than a normal hairpin. It's a very long way around, very loopy sort of hairpin, and if you do go deep at the first point, you can bring it back again, but the fact that that's a downhill braking zone does leave you quite susceptible to getting it wrong down the hill there and getting overtaken again by somebody coming back through. So it's a bizarre hairpin in my opinion, but there you go. That's what we've got to deal with, and that's by all accounts the best overtaking opportunity that any of these drivers have got here tonight. That's where the DRS zone ends, of course, as well. Not saying that's the only reason they can overtake, but it does certainly help, and that's where we're going to be seeing a lot of our action today. But so far not too much of it, just a few passes in these opening laps as everybody settles in to the opening stint of this race.
I think it is going to be just a race of attrition more than anything, with the tyre deg and things. Of course, with it being a potential 3-stop race, they don't want to wear their tyres out too much by fighting. And if you do try and contest it, say around the outside or whatever, you're going to be using a lot more of your tyre because, like you say, it's a slightly longer way around, being a more obtuse hairpin. We'll go with that one. And of course with turn 8 and the lateral load that you get, again using a lot of the tyres. So I think for the most part people are just settling in DRS trains, happy to sit there. Maybe that's a won't or a can't. I don't know which one it is, whether they're unwilling or just unable to make those moves. But at the moment it just seems to be a fairly tame, uniform running of things at the moment, and no one too eager to make some moves. Maybe this will change when we get sort of into the latter portion of the race, when things have settled themselves out in terms of strategy. We'll have to wait and see, but definitely seems that people are biding their time and waiting for this race to come to them.
They certainly are, and one driver who will certainly be doing that is Sander Callas. Is the best placed of the non-medium tyre runners at the moment, down in 13th position. Callas is 10th in the drivers' standings at the moment, although has got a 7th and an 8th place finish in his most recent couple of appearances. Never won a Formula Sim Racing World Championship race, but he has been on pole on a couple of occasions as the Estonian. And I just wonder at what point his hard tyres are going to become better than the mediums, because many times this season we've seen actually it's not about when these tyres fall off the cliff and you have to come in because they've worn out, like you see very often in the real world, but it's about selecting a tyre compound that you are most comfortable with for the duration of said stint, and also of course using 2 tyre compounds in every race as you have to do in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. So I wonder whether this is a case of Callas just enjoying the feel of the hard tyres more, whether he wants to get them out of the way because he's in traffic and feels this is the best way to do it, or whether there's another reasoning at play as the leaders get close, but that was very obvious in their unwillingness to battle with one another.
Yeah, and there's no point. There's nothing they can gain from that. If Denahan goes for that move, you know, what does he gain? He gains track position, and then of course runs the risk of McGorgy going back. With him there's a battle here, of course. Sander Callas on the hards was under pressure from Valeriano momentarily going into turn 12, but no way through. And yeah, you're right when it comes to the tyres, of course, with the hards. If he is going for, say, the same laps as the medium stints are, say 15, 16 laps or so, what that does mean, he's not as concerned about longevity. He can lean on the tyres a little bit more. He can push them a little bit harder without worrying they're going to overheat or he's going to overdrive the car or make them fall off the cliff. He can push them harder without having to worry too much about conservation. And then with the added bonus that a little bit later on in the stint, while the mediums wear out, his tyres, relative to them, are only going to get quicker and quicker and push his way through. It's a fairly compact mid-pack as well for the most part, so there are plenty of positions for him to gain should those tyres come to him.
Here goes Giordano Valeriano, who's dropping like a bit of a stone at the moment. We're just talking about Sander Callas and when the race is going to come to him, and there you go, 12th place for the Ground Effect Sim Racing driver at the moment. Ground Effect, by the way, dropped to 10th in the team standings last time round. Sander Callas is the only driver to have contributed so far this season. George Argianis, who's down in 20th at the moment, has yet to finish a race since Bahrain, and he's yet to score any points all season as well. There he is in 20th place, just continuing to plug away at the back of the field. Back down into turn 12 we go, and Yannick Bock, who is in 6th position at the moment. If things were to end right now, Yannick Bock would lose his championship lead and be 9 points behind Owen McGorgy, and he'd also be significantly closer to Jake Denahan, who would gain a good 9 points on him as well to bring that margin down to 15. So it would all suddenly get a lot closer as expected, but it's such an interesting championship situation. You get the feeling though that we've not quite seen all the drama we're going to get from those championship leaders here today, as we look at another replay here of Jurnej Simoncic choosing the unusual outside line of Sergio Fletcher, and the 4-time champion goes back through again. Some very easy DRS passes today.
Yeah, long straight, downhill braking, and I think that Chihoira is going to go for one as well to the left. Of course, that's Valeriano, who we were just touching on, is dropping back fairly significantly, and with that DRS zone, certainly not helping his case whatsoever. So overtaken doesn't seem to be something fantastic difficulty, of course, as well with the hybrid deployment that they get, that push-to-pass system, of course, to propel them with the assistance of DRS. It shouldn't be too difficult, but I don't think Fletcher was making it too difficult for him anyway. The awkward thing about this train, though, is that they're about 2.5 seconds off the back of Van Vukas, who himself is just over a second off of Tom Stevens in P7. So there's not really many places that this train can go. It's going to be so difficult for them to go up as a bit of a look there. I think that might well be Sergio Fletcher fighting away with Pascal going through the final chicane.
It certainly is. Fletcher's got the in. Oh, he's going to the pit lane. Well, we've seen that one before, but I don't think he was planning for that. He just thought, well, I'm here now, I might as well come into pit lane. Costas Van Vukas also does the same from Netrex, so the race is really on now. We've got pit stops at the Turkish Grand Prix, and we've also had a lead change as Jake Denahan gets to the front of the field. Ahead of Owen McGorgy, there are the two race clutch drivers who have been 1 and 2 all race long, but they're reversed in position as the pit stops begin to make this race interesting.
Yeah, here we go. This is really where we're going to start to kickstart things. Of course, how is everyone in that train going to respond? Are they going to respond? Do they offset their strategy? Getting told that Fletcher also put on lap 13 this time a couple of hours ago when he was doing the pro race as well. But he rejoins the race again on the medium, so doing another set. In as well comes Cosmo Prosciutto from the back of the grid, but he was one of those on the hard compound tyres. So again, will be interesting to see what he goes on to. More interestingly, those at the front and what those behind can do. But what's happened to Prosciutto? Oh, that is, well, tough at the exit of turn 8.
Big spin and lucky to avoid the wall. You get a lot of tarmac on the outside there, as has been the case for quite some time. And so he gets away with it, Prosciutto, but is now very much driving around on his own at the back. He's 24th in the, or tied 23rd, I should say, in the drivers' standings so far this season. Not quite returning to the heights of his pro championship victory all those years ago. Into the final couple of corners for Valeriano, who again has been overtaken here. Dennis Jordan, the latest, to add to an ever-growing list for the Team VM driver. I'm not entirely sure why, whether he's intentionally dropping back in the group, but I don't really see a good reason for him to. But if his tyres were going off, surely he'd be in the pit lane. It's quite a puzzling last few minutes from Valeriano as he's constantly getting his head kicked in here.
Well, yeah, pretty much. In the bluntest way, that's exactly what's been going on. And I don't see why it would ever be intentional. I don't know why, as a racing driver, you'd purposely fall backwards. Maybe to alleviate some pressure, but even then, it's just clutching at short straws, trying to justify why he would do it. I think he just wants to stay a part of this train, but also doesn't want to come in too early as to offset his strategy too much, because he comes in earlier on this stint. All that's going to do then is delay that pain later on in the race, which is, of course, the last thing you want. You want to be as quick as possible at the end of the race and not struggling, worrying about your tyres too much. Lap 14 of 58, and we didn't really see too many other drivers make their way into pit lane. So Fletcher is significantly offset from the rest of the people on this grid, particularly those in his group.
And Van Vukas as well has just got to hope that he doesn't catch too much traffic, to be honest. Stone Barbakov is just up ahead of him as we've got more pit stops now. That was one of the Brabham cars, Braksok, Jonas Braksok, into pit lane from third. There he is, the Hungarian. Now, is this a three stop from him today as well? As he goes up onto the axe on some more medium tyres. It's certainly not a one stop, but we didn't think it would ever be anyway, as he makes his way out of pit lane. Will he be anywhere near Van Vukas? Is there any credit given to the undercut here at this circuit? As Kostas Van Vukas will set his first lap time since exiting the pit lane, a 29.3. Where is Braksok? He is pretty much the same distance as before, and a 29.3 is only a second quicker than what those guys at the front are doing at the moment. So the tyre fall off is not hugely dramatic. We've seen worse, but it could be utilised to Kostas Van Vukas' advantage. It could even propel him into that top three conversation with Jonas Braksok if Race Clutch don't respond quickly.
Potentially so, because a second is a lot of time when the gaps, especially at the front, are separated by so little. Even if he's able to get a two-lap undercut, if that averages out at 2 seconds, maybe 2.5 as the drivers at the front continue to drop off their pace, he could well be able to be within a shout. Of course, like I said, he's going to offset that damage later in the race, but particularly for those outside of the top three, it's just taking that first step in. It's just getting that foot in the door, getting in the DRS range, and then worrying from there. They have to do something different, because on pure pace, they're unable to breach that top three and get inside the DRS. And here we go. Very busy in pit lane. Denahan, Magorgi, and Tien all in. I think Bianca Lilla also followed. Be interesting to see if anyone actually stays out, but for the most part, they're responding at the front.
Yannick Bock stays out. Championship leader has been sitting tight in the second group for a while, and now he exits the group. It's a bit of a palaver here. Denahan having to get around Jörg Tyen there, who pulled up right in front of him. Owen Magorgi gets out right behind his teammate as well. It looks like we're all on mediums here, by the way, as Jonas Braksok goes through, and he's in the lead, is he? Side by side here with Jake Denahan out of the pit lane. The Hungarian gets to the front, or what will become the front, as he pits one lap earlier, utilises those new medium tyres to get himself to a net race lead.
Perfectly done, and that is how you execute an undercut. He knew the outlap was going to be critical, and he did it to perfection. Now he's got the lead. What can he do with it, and how is he best going to set himself up for, of course, the stint ahead? I'm sure Denahan and Magorgi are going to have a response. Interesting that Bock is going long in this stint, though. Of course, his pace on the last lap was a 30.3, which I think, considering the drop-off, is fairly competitive, but is at least a second slower than what they're doing currently on fresh mediums, and being slower is the last thing that Bok needs. But if he's able to play the long term and get back in contention at the end, that's the all-important thing.
It certainly is. This is the rejoin for Jake Dennehan, who would have hoped to hang on ahead of Jonas Braxup, but couldn't do it. Does he touch the white line here? No, he's all okay, but he's not quick enough. Jonas Braxup gets out ahead of him in what is 9th place at the moment, but will become the race lead as far as the three stoppers, or we believe to be the three stoppers, go. Now, is Yannick Bok continuing on to go for a free stop? Likewise with Jone Simičić, Dennis Jordan, Christian Pasquale, who are all continuing on. Michi Hoyer is into pit lane, so is Isaac Killerson and Sander Callas. Despite the fact he was on hard tyres, that just shows you it's not about going as long as you can when you're on the different compounds. It's about going as quickly as you can on whatever tyres you can find. There goes Hillerson out on the hard tyres for the first time. As we go on board with Dennehan, a pretty important moment coming up here, by the way, because Jonas Braxup's got through on Filip Puška. The race clutch drivers need to follow suit, otherwise they'll let the Hungarian go.
Yeah, we've known how critical that DRS is in this race, with how much the groups have spread, and Dennehan once again caught behind Puška. He needs to get through ideally before turn 8 or during, because being stuck behind is the last thing he wants, but I think that is going to be the case. He's going to be stuck behind the tantalisingly long turn 8. Of course, it just seemingly goes on forever and ever, and when there's such a disparity in pace, it is so grueling for Dennehan as he sees Braxup getting further and further away, still stuck behind Puška, and that is the last thing that Race Clutch need, is to allow the Hungarian to continue to extend that gap.
Well, it's going to be over 2.5 seconds here. Jake Dennehan has to get through right now, and Owen McGorgy will do as well. Is he going to make it 3 wide? Is he going to get past his teammate here in one go as well here? Owen McGorgy, he might well do. Looks to the inside into turn 12 and can't quite do it. Here with 40 laps to go as we get to the line. Yannick Bok is into pit lane. The championship leader has had the undercut pushed upon him for a couple of laps now, and he will drop further back to the midfield, but he'll hope that this is all part of a big plan to vault up the standings a little bit later in the day.
Yeah, and that means that Jonas Braxup then is going to be the one to take the lead of the race. 1.5 seconds clear of the 2 Race Clutch cars. What's the situation going to be as Bok rejoins just in behind Stevens with some fresh rubber, and to be fair, still amongst this pack, but down in P9. He's got some track position to make up. This middle stint is going to be so crucial to set the tone for his final sprint to the finish later on.
Yeah, it certainly is. Tom Stevens, the driver, right just ahead. Joe Tyne just ahead of that. And by the way, Netrex have got 2 drivers in the top 7 at the moment. We kind of saw this at the San Marino Grand Prix when Go Team Racing were having a fantastic day. They were last in the Teams Championship at the time, down in 11th place. They're up to 9th now as a result of a great haul at the San Marino Grand Prix, with 21 points added to their tally, which is more than double what they had at the time, which is quite amazing. But now Netrex have got the same. They've only scored 21 points so far, and now they've got 2 drivers inside the top 7 places. Will van Bucker's moved forward further. Looks like it as he gets down the inside at turn 12. That shouldn't be too difficult though on Filip Puška, who is very much going to be overtaken regularly if he stays out much longer because of his old tyres. And it looks like he does want to receive that beating on the circuit instead of in the pit lane, and so stays out a little bit longer, as the old tyre now will look to join his teammate in the top 5.
Yeah, he's going for it. He's going to find his way through by the time they reach turn 1. Shouldn't be too difficult of an overtake, as Puška really hasn't got much of an answer. Manuel Biancalilla as well needs to find a way through as soon as possible, just to once again stay in contention. Crucial when Stevens, Bok and Fletcher all make themselves a part of that conversation. Interestingly though, for Fletcher, that undercut not working overly well as to get himself amongst the sort of that top 6 battle, but still there inside the top 10. Martin Maguli as well making some good progress. He's firmly inside the points and not a million miles away from the top 10 either. Jone Simičić down in P13, but watch out for him. He's always a crafty one when it comes to tyre strategy.
Absolutely, but I'm not really sure what the plan is here, to be honest, from those guys. As by the way, lots of drivers getting past Filip Puška there. Well, I'd imagine without too much difficulty for Biancalilla, Stevens and Bok. But I do struggle to doubt Jone Simičić, because I think I did once very publicly on in Indy Pro about 3 years ago, and he proved me wrong by winning or coming second or something. So I've learned never to do it again ever since then. However, you do wonder sometimes with him, with his strategies. They're a little bit off what you'd expect sometimes. He does find a way to pull them off from 9 times out of 10. However, where is he going to go from here? He's in loads of traffic. He's on the hardest tyres. He got himself undercut by so many other drivers during that previous cycle. I don't see where he goes from here.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I'm in the same boat. Not entirely sure as to what he can do, particularly with how dynamic this pack is going to be. He's under pressure from behind, as well as Moguli and Pascal all battle their way with him also, but he's focusing his attention forward and getting past Sander Callis. On the hards for this middle stint, it sets him up for a decent final stint, I suppose, is something that's good there. Of course, he's a veteran. He's a 4-time champion in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. He knows when it comes to tyre strategy, and I suppose it's just one of those things that we will have to just wait and see. We did see momentarily, by the way, at the front, that the gap has closed between Brackshock and Denahan, and, well, now rFactor are back within a shout for the race lead. So pulling off those very important couple of laps just to reclose that gap, get themselves back into contention. Talking of important laps, Yannick Bock as well needs to be in the conversation and has firmly driven himself onto the back of Stevens, who's done the same to get onto the back of Bianca Lilla and Van Vukas as well.
Yep, so lap 20 about to be completed, and the front 3 are restored with a change of position for Race Clutch. Omagorgi back through into second place now, ahead of Jake Denahan. Deniz Brackshock up ahead of them. So all 3 of these drivers have now led laps in the Turkish Grand Prix this evening, as Manuel Biancalilla is dropping down the field and retires. Manuel Biancalilla is out of the Turkish Grand Prix. Surely that means his championship hopes are over as well, even though they were distant at the start of the day, as he was 47 points back. He's going to be close to 60, 70 points back by the end of today. And here is what happened. Manuel Biancalilla into the side of, who is that? Somebody into turn 12. A big lockup as he loses his front wing. He was alongside one of the Netrex drivers. I'm going to guess it's Kostas Van Vukas. It is indeed the Netrex driver who was having a great race. Defends in towards turn 12. Biancalilla, although it was a late defence, Biancalilla sort of drives into him and then sends him into the gravel. Biancalilla out of the race, possibly out of the season. Van Vukas out of contention for sure.
Yeah, just moving over too late, I think, from both parties more than anything. He lost his front wing, and at that point, the aerodynamic grip leaves the car, and the front tyres get loaded so much more. It's so easy to lock up. Then, of course, he's got no front wing and no turning ability. Anyway, look at this slingshot from Omagorgi to take the race lead away from Yannis Brackshock. Jake Denahan can watch as now, sandwiched between the 2 Red Bulls, is Yannis Brackshock, who is now going to be looking both forward to attack, backwards to defend. But Mogorgi retakes control of the race for Race Clutch.
Yeah, Race Clutch, not Red Bulls. Slip of the tongue there, but it's fine. I won't
Red Bull?
I won't point it out or anything, but you did say Red Bull, yeah. So sorry about that. But yeah, I mean, it's almost second nature to anybody, isn't it? Really, in this kind of situation.
Well, it's the same thing, basically, isn't it? Race Clutch, Red Bull, they do. Yeah,
there's certain similarities so far this season, anyway. So there you go. But what about that incident down towards turn 12? I mean, Biancalilla unfortunately out of the race, and I have a feeling he might be done for the season now. He's certainly out of championship contention that he was probably feeling quite positive about after the opening 4 rounds of the season. He was on the podium twice, in the top 5 at all 4 of the opening rounds, but hasn't been in the top 10 since then. This is the incident. I mean, for me, he's got plenty of time, although it is a late move from Van Vukas, and you never like to see those. For me, Biancalilla's got time to react to that, but just didn't quite do it.
Yeah, I think he just... Obviously, you don't want to go further to the inside than you need to, as to open the corner up as much as possible. But you're right, he had plenty of time and plenty of space to react. He just wanted to be as close as possible to Van Vukas. In doing so, as Van Vukas continued to go left, Biancalilla wasn't filling the space that was there to the left of him. And in doing so, yeah, just lost his front wing and then lost all grip. And then had no control going into the braking zone, and that was basically the end of that one. Sander Callis, Sergio Fletcher going into the same corner, they're able to find their way through nice and cleanly. A shame for Biancalilla, of course, off the back of that P19 in Imola as well, is the last thing he wanted to do. If he wanted any chance of a championship campaign, he really needed to score some decent points here today. With 2 bad rounds on the bounce. No points, of course, going to be scored here at Turkey. That's going to be 2 no scores in a row. He was already a distant shout for the championship. Now it's, yeah, a distant thought, if even an impossibility.
Yeah, it really is. Well, it's not going to be mathematically, but I'll take your point. It's very, very difficult indeed. We are getting to the stage in the season now where we're going to start counting people out mathematically from championship contention. So far, we've still got 15 available all the way back to Yukapeka Lalu, although the fact that Lalu's not here means that he won't be. Not that we particularly worried about that for the moment. As we said before, realistically about those front 3 who are spread through the top 10 for the moment. Omagorgi's first, he's second in the championship. Jake Dennehan's third, he's also third in the championship. Yannick Bock is the championship leader, he is 6th. But it's a close race. The top 6 indeed covered by 5.5 seconds. It's a race that very much has the feeling of one that's yet to really come to life in terms of knowing who the race winner's going to be. We know that race crutch have got such incredible pace, and the fact they've got 2 bullets in the gun to maybe work over Jonas Braksuk and anybody else who can join them in the top 3 there, maybe play to their advantage in the second half of the Turkish Grand Prix.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things that it's going to come alive in that final stint. Right, from maybe lap 35 onwards, of course that's not exactly the final stint, plus or minus a couple of laps, but I think that those final 20 laps or so is really going to be where it comes to life. People then start fighting more and more for track position. Right now there's been a couple of it, but at the end of the day, it's more important to stay in the DRS train, stay in contention with as many people as possible, and not really go for many moves, purely because it's so easy for that track position to swap. Later on in the race, where it starts to mean more and more to be ahead, and obviously you start to piece together, you don't really have to worry about tyres too much. That's really then when you can start to push. I think the bottom line is it's going to be Magorgi, Braksuk and Dennehan at the bare minimum fighting at the front. If they aren't, I'm going to be severely surprised. But which of the 3 is going to be the one to come out on top, we don't know. The 2 race clutches, though, like you say, 2 bullets in the gun, able to fire. They've got each other for support with slipstream and assisting each other with saving the tyres and saving track position more than anything. They are in a very, very strong position, and one that's going to be very tough to break.
Certainly, as Yannick Bock is on the hard compound tyres here, it's made me wonder a little bit about the 5 ahead of him. I don't believe any of them have gone for hard tyres yet, have they? So, because they've been so infrequent throughout the field. Just makes me wonder a little bit when they're going to do that, but also what's going to happen when they do. Will their speed be strong enough when Yannick Bock is possibly on a faster tyre later on in the race? Will they suffer a little bit on those hard compound tyres? Because for the moment, Yannick Bock is doing just fine on those hard compound tyres. He was 5.5 seconds off the lead last time he commented on it. Now he's just over 5 as Cosmo Prosciutto is finding new limits to the Istanbul Park racetrack. He's not enjoying turn 8 today, is he, very much? Let's have a look at how he's got it wrong this time. This is on the soft tyres. He's got wide on that curve. That's the more common thing to go wrong. Not what we saw before with the spin. It's getting on that curve, which really sends you straight on and off the road.
Yeah, unfortunate one, but at that point, yeah, the car's just got no grip. Here's Valeriano finding a way past one of the Brabham cars. I think that is going to be Martin Maguli going nice to turn 12 and an easy move nonetheless. So nice to see him working his way forward as opposed to falling backwards in this. And he's able to double his point score effectively and go for 2 as opposed to the 1. Lap 25 of 58, we are approaching half distance already. It's flown its way through, and hopefully the fuse that's going to catalyse the really interesting, the really spicy part of this race is going to be lit in the near future. Still the top 3 as they are, but the threat, I mean, at the moment they seem fairly safe. But Tien is there. Stevens, Bock, of course, with the uncertainty on his strategy, is still there. Oh my goodness me, what a launch that is from Jake Dennehan to the inside of the chicane.
Big move down the inside. Jonas Braksuk facilitated it somewhat, but it was nevertheless impressive from the pole sitter of today's race. Jake Dennehan up to 2nd position. There goes Yannick Bock too, up to 5th position. He's really starting to motor in this race now as the Evo driver, trying to hold on to a narrow 6-point lead in the championship. This is the replay of what happened as Dennehan knew that he wanted to get through a Braksuk there, and I think Braksuk did want to defend, but he must have decided going into that braking zone that he wasn't in danger, but he evidently was, and this is how Yannick Bock got through to 5th as well.
Yeah, should just be a fairly simple DRS, maybe a bit of hybrid as well. Pulls out to the left and has, yeah, ample time and ample advantage going into the braking zone to find his way through. Nicely done for Bock, who still has a decent chance, I think, in this race. He's gained positions from his qualifying and he's closing the gap. So at the bare minimum, it's going to be a damage limitation and a solid one at that for Bock. Maybe he's going to reel himself into contention and score some even better points as well. But for Dennehan, yeah, what he did, he showed his nose. Brackshock looked in the mirrors and was like, yeah, there's no way he's going to go for that. And then he did, caught him off guard. Dennehan then had the inside, and Brackshock, with it all to lose, didn't really see much benefit in fighting it too hard, but rather sit behind, stay in the DRS train, and of course, live by another day effectively. So that's how they all swapped. But again, more moves into T12. I think we've only seen 1 or 2 overtakes other than this chicane.
Yeah. It's very common. And in towards turn 12 again. Oh, here goes Yanni Simincic. He had a look down the inside of Christian Pascal there as Sergio Fletcher joins in as well. It's pushed back to 10th place. Mitchie Hoyer also here, the other rFactor eSports team driver. And then Dennis Jordan, who's in there in 12th place. What role does he have to play in this race? Let's rewind this battle to the start though and just see what was going on, because it's all very messy when we joined in. So there is Pascal getting through. Simincic goes through as well. He was looking for 8th as well, though. Look at him looking down the inside there, but couldn't quite do it. Don't know why Fletcher was so slow on a straight line there, but clearly that is the advantage between hybrid deployment and not.
Yeah, couple that with some DRS and slipstream, and you're just going to be a sitting duck. There's not really much you can do. No amount of lowering your rear wing. It's a huge snap of oversteer there for Sergio Fletcher. Just invites Mitchie Hoyer through onto the inside through the uphill right-hander. Dennis Jordan as well and Isaac Gillison working together quite nicely. But another snap of Fletcher's at rear end. Maybe those mediums starting to fall off. And here goes Dennis Jordan around the outside 4 times through turn 8.
Unbelievable, Dennis Jordan. It's only for 11th position, but he's just pulled off one of the overtakes of the season. Dennis Jordan is up to 11th as Sergio Fletcher is beginning to slide around like he's on ice at the moment, but that doesn't take away from the overtake there from Dennis Jordan. I don't think I've ever seen anybody go around the outside of turn 8 at Istanbul.
Take another look at it, because what a move that was. It took bravery, particularly when he knew that Fletcher didn't have too much grip, but he was confident in his ability. Look at the agility there. Fletcher did well to give him the space, of course, but Jordan, exceptional courage and pulled that off fantastically. It takes bravery to do that, even if you know you're the quicker car, and he pulled it off fantastically. What an important move it was, and understandably Fletcher waking his way into pit lane.
I'm not sure what he's done to his tyres, Fletcher, to be honest, but they're in terrible shape for whatever reason. He exchanges them now for some hard compound tyres. Cosmo Prosciutto has met his biggest enemy, I should say, in this race, and that's turn 8. He's now out of the race, unfortunately, but wow, what a moment that was. And you were right to say, by the way, fair play to Fletcher, because he wasn't doing well on his tyres at all, but still found the grip to not slide straight into Jordan, as could have easily happened. Cosmo Prosciutto has, as I say, not been enjoying this corner, and there is his nail in the coffin.
Yeah, 3 spins through turn 8 in 3 different ways as well. Unfortunately, that one was the one that ended his race. Easily done, easily happened, but one that did carry some drastic consequences with it as well. So a shame for Prosciutto, because he's a driver that definitely has got a ton of potential. Multiple time point scorer, of course, in the World Championship. Of course, he's a pro champion of past as well. So he's not slow, but just unfortunately has met his match with turn 8 here at Istanbul. Here's the situation, by the way, at the front. Still Race Clutch leading the way quite nicely, but Brackshock keeping them honest.
He certainly is, although sometimes feels to me as if he's just clinging on with them, to be honest, rather than keeping them honest. But depends, I suppose that's 2 different ways of looking at the same thing, isn't it, really, rather than anything major. There is Yannick Bock, 3.7 seconds off the lead now. He's closing in on these hard compound tyres, and I'm wondering whether is it track temperature, is it just the way this track is? But the hard tyre runners earlier weren't getting as much joy as Yannick Bock is evidently getting out of these tyres, and Fletcher was not getting a lot out of those mediums at all. They were like rubber at the, well, it's all rubber, isn't it? But you get what I mean. It was rubbish rubber by the end of the stint for Sergio Fletcher. But Yannick Bock is staying absolutely steady, slowly reeling in those leaders, and for whatever reason, now just around 4 seconds off the lead. It's really closed that in, closed it by at least a quarter of its previous size.
think it just goes to show the longevity of the hards at the very least compared to the mediums. Of course, McGorgy, Denahan, Brackshock, they all had to, in some capacity, push their tyres very early on. Brackshock to get the undercut, and then of course the two race clutch cars to reclose that gap into the pit lane. By the way, I think I did see Brackshock peeling off and going to the left, so clearly dictating that the stint is over, and I think that is the display that the hards are now becoming quicker than those mediums. Bok, if he's going for a two-stop, he's hoping that he's far enough ahead, which isn't exactly completely out of the question, or at the very least he'll be on softer, fresher tyres at the end compared to the two race clutches, and of course the Brabham eSports Brackshock, who once again is going for that undercut.
Yeah, so there you go. Jonas Brackshock doing the undercut again. And now, can he find some clean air here? That's so crucial to his strategy, and he's just ahead of Valeriano. That's exactly where he needs to be. Jotain might well get caught up with Giordano Valeriano on his outlap here, which might not be a good thing. Now, I wonder whether Race Clutch are going to respond to this. We're on lap 30 of the race. We're over halfway through the Turkish Grand Prix now. But do they see Brackshock as a realistic threat for this race win, or are they going to run their own strategy regardless?
You've got to trust your instincts, right? You can't be too concerned about what other people are doing. Race Clutch, they know what they're doing. They do the prep, they work hard behind the scenes, they set the car up, they dictate the strategy, and you can't deviate from that. Well, I mean, you can. Sometimes it's good to react and things like that, but for the most part, they're clearly confident in what they've got going on. In their head, he's already tried the undercut once. It didn't work. They were both able to regain that track position within a couple of laps. And so for them, it's not too worth deviating off their normal strategy. However, they are in this lap nonetheless. We'll see, of course, what the situation is going to be with Jonas Brackshock once these two leave the pit lane. There's a little bit further back. Here's Tien fighting at the very least. Is that? No, that's not Brackshock ahead of him. He's well, he's got Valeriano just behind him. So I think Tien is just working his way through traffic quite nicely. Brackshock not a million miles away either. So look out for that Netrect car, actually. He could be quite a dangerous shout should anything go wrong for the top three.
So I think Brackshock's going to be back in the lead again here if the last cycle is to be believed, but let's wait and see. It's going to be closer. There is McGorgy. I don't think Brackshock's quite done it this time round. He splits the Race Clutch drivers. Does he even get in the middle of them? Yes, he does, just about, but that wasn't even comfortable to get past Jake Denahan there. Owen McGorgy really lit the afterburners on that lap there, and that has given him 8th position. Doesn't seem like a lot at the moment, but it could prove crucial by the end of the day as he's really beginning to take control of this race. And I don't know if you noticed, just on the way into pit lane there, he had about 3/4 of a second on his teammate as well. He was really showing his speed.
Yeah, he was. Beautiful stuff from McGorgy to respond nicely. Of course, Race Clutch still in control, sandwiching Brackshock quite nicely. Of course, they do have to work their way past Isaac Gillison and then the train just ahead of him, and that could open the door for some opportunities. But for the most part, I think it is going to be fairly uniform. But McGorgy doing the job when it needs to be done. I think all three of them are then going to be forced to go either hards or softs at the end of the race. Be interested to see which way they go. Probably softs, I'd imagine. But here goes McGorgy finding his way past the Ferrari, also with Brackshock going with him as well. Denahan having to wait. How costly could this be if the top two are able to break away?
Very costly indeed, I would have thought, but I don't think Jake Denahan's going to let it happen. There is the run through the final corner from Denahan, almost up the back of the Ferrari here. Now he'll be down the inside into turn one, but Hillison won't make it too easy. He loses a bit of speed on the second half of the straight, breaks a little bit early, and Jake Denahan's through, although there will be a run from Tyne and Hillison here out of turn 1 and 2. Does Tyne get through? Yes, he's going to use some energy. Denahan can't go anywhere. Here goes Tyne down the inside, very nearly off two drivers in one, who remain side by side as they go into the right-hander at turn 4. There's contact, and Isaac Hillison goes around into the grass.
Yeah, we'll have to take another look at that, really digest it properly. But at first glance, not entirely sure as to who you can blame for that one. Very aggressive. Doesn't want to really let up much at all. Gillison, of course, was being aggressive as well. Not entirely sure as to why he was being as aggressive as he was. But I think it was what we saw a bit earlier on. I think it was with Van Vukas, just again with that unfortunate slight side-to-side contact. Unsettled the car too much, and around he went.
I think he just missed the apex there slightly, didn't he, Hillison? And maybe contributed to his own downfall, but we'll see what is said after the race about that one. Don't imagine much will be done, I wouldn't have thought, but let's wait and see as we continue on with lap 32. Yannick Bok continues. Are we starting to see a diverging of strategies here from Yannick Bok and the race clutch drivers, who all of a sudden realise they're absolutely in a race here, although they probably realised before anyway. They certainly know it now. They've had traffic to negotiate. They've got speed to make up because they've got a pit stop to overturn. They tried to do this back at Hockenheim, of course, and in other occasions as well, but especially Hockenheim is a memorable one. They finished 5th and 6th that day as they tried to make an enormous amount of stops. I think it was 4 that day. You're not going to do 4 anywhere else, I wouldn't have thought, and 4 on that day turned out to be a bad idea too, but they're once again doing this strategy of let's go as hard as possible and let's do the chasing on the best tyres we can grab. Well, they're certainly good at it, but are they quick enough? Because Yannick Bock was only 3.5, 4 seconds behind them when they came into the pit lane. That's not exactly a big advantage to hold when you suddenly come out behind him and needing to chase him down at the gap currently 12 seconds up to the race leader.
On that last lap though, Janis Brakshock was able to set the fastest lap of the race for 1:28.0, which was matched by Ewan McGorgy, a little bit slower, half a tenth slower, but in more importantly 1.3 seconds quicker than Yannick Bock. But is that enough to overturn a whole pit stop? Do they have enough laps in between the overlap of the stints to close that, and then of course not only close it, have enough tyre to then seal the move as well? Into the pit lane comes Pascal, so Simoncic is up there in second, so definitely going for longevity in this race, maybe another 2-stopper just to try his luck with it, but Pascal is in and on to the medium, so this will be his second to last stop in this race. But Bock is an interesting adversary. He's definitely a dark horse that's just, again, bided his time and gone for a different strategy, which, to be fair, I think he needed to do because it was clear the pace wasn't there as McGorgy tries to fight his way through the second Ferrari.
Here we go, outside of turn 4. We've seen this before. He's jammed on the outside. Jordan closes the door. Goodness me, Ewan McGorgy muscles his way through down the inside at turn 5, but that was aggressive between the two. They both knew the stakes were high there, but Ewan McGorgy got through. And what's also noticeable is the gap that he's got to Janis Brakshock. Before that overtake slowed him down a little bit, he was starting to really motor. 24 laps to go at the end of this one, by the way. We're getting towards the stage now where drivers can start thinking about making their final pit stop in the next few moments' time. It's not going to happen for Ewan McGorgy for quite some time. He's got some overtakes to make before then. Here's one on Mitchy Hoyer. This is going to be easy. He gets the exit. He doesn't even need DRS. He's passed before the line.
Yeah, that's what he needs. And then, of course, to get the DRS as well as, oh my goodness me, this is going to get busy into turn 12. They were momentarily 3 wide. Denahan goes for the move on Hoyer. There's the move as Brakshock tries to get involved and find the way through on Jordan. They're 2 by 2 through the final couple of corners. Of course, it's Brakshock on the inside of Jordan to find his way through, but McGorgy is trying to maximise this and build a bigger gap as possible. Denahan follows suit as well on the inside by the time they reach turn 1, but is forced to tuck in. He cannot stay behind Denahan.
Janis Jordan's being very aggressive in this group, as he's, of course, within his rights to do, but it will frustrate those who are looking for positions right now. Here goes Jake Denahan on the way towards turn 3. Will he be as aggressive as his teammate was on Janis Jordan? He will! Outside of turn 4 again! And for the second lap in a row, a race clutch car gets past Janis Jordan down the inside at turn 5. In a move that's becoming fairly common. Here goes Jörg Tyen as well, as he looks to the outside of turn 7. It's an awfully long way around there, and he's going to get given just the right amount of room to get down the inside for turn 8 in time. He needs to make this move, and there's contact. Janis Jordan was a whisker away from going straight off and maybe into the wall at turn 8, but he stays on the road. He loses 6th place though to Jörg Tyen, who continues to give chase to the leaders.
Yeah, that was very close to catastrophe, particularly at that part of the circuit. Let's have a look and digest what happened into T12. Mitchy Hoyer was just like, yeah, nah, I don't want any part of this, lads. You all just have a lovely time going through. Denahan, understandably, was remarkably aggressive in fighting his way through. He cannot afford to let Brakshock or McGorgy get away. That's why he was so aggressive with Jordan. Had a look to the inside of the final corner, but in the end, didn't quite get the drive. Jörg Tyen then was able to put the drive down as well. The Netrex GP car running very nicely, still within a shout for what could well be a podium potentially. So many variables are going on, so many things chucked into the mix. Well, a good half a lap of just out-and-out carnage.
Fantastic racing, though. Thoroughly enjoyable. And that was, yeah, great stuff. It's all, though, playing into the hands of Yannick Bock. He's still got nearly 10 seconds over Ewan McGorgy here. who's trying to chase him down for the lead. This could be quite an important overtake. How quickly can Owen McGorgy get through on Jurnej Simicic, who is also employing this two-stop tyre strategy?
He needs to do it as soon as possible while those mediums are still fresh, while he's got the pace in hand. On that last lap was only half a second quicker than the top two, and that is not going to cut it, I don't think, by the time they reach the end of this race. Lap 36 of 58, firmly into the second half and firmly looking towards the end of this race. McGorgy's got some good momentum at the moment. He cannot afford to lose it, particularly when Janis Brakshock is breathing down his neck behind.
Absolutely. It is going to be an overtake here for McGorgy down the inside at turn 12. Even able to pull back to the racing line again before the braking zone. How long does Simicic continue to leave this then as Jordan and Hoyer get together here? Hoyer comes into the pit lane. 22 laps to go. You imagine he will go to the end from here maybe. Still seems like a fairly long way to me, but let's see. Let's see. Pulls into the box. I think we're pretty decided now, though. Yannick Bock must be employing a two-stop strategy here with Owen McGorgy, Jake Dennehan and Janis Brakshock looking to catch him a little bit later on. Jake Dennehan going to have to make some of these kind of moves if he wants to do that. Round the outside at turn 4 is becoming a race clutch favourite. And for the third lap in 4, Jake Dennehan or Owen McGorgy makes an outside move at turn 4. This time it's Dennehan on Simicic for 4th place.
It's a good move. Don't blame him. I mean, if you can pull it off and you know that's where your strengths lie, particularly with fresher tyres, you can carry that speed and then it gives you the advantage for the next left. It is a very, very good idea indeed. Just got to carry that momentum through, dance your way around the outside and beautifully done. Of course, it is on the inside car to give you enough space, but Simicic, of course, aggressive, hard, but fair in what he needs. And again, there's no point fighting Dennehan if he wants to maximise his result in this race. Maybe in the next stint when he's back in front, potentially after the guys in front pit, that's then when we're going to see it. ERTN as well is going to be trying to find a way through on Simicic. Not going to be overly easy because, of course, the civilian has got DRS himself as Dennehan goes defensive. A half look there as there's a slight bit of contact at ERTN's front wing and Dennehan's rear left. Simicic then falls victim to it. I think he didn't want to go for a move, but he was forced to because of the overspeed.
Well, I'm not entirely sure. I think he wanted to get from Simicic. Not sure he wanted to try and attack Dennehan as well, but that's ended up what happening as Yannick Bock makes his pit stop. Back on the hard tyres again, going to the end of the race. Some important laps coming up here. Tom Stevens gets ahead. Sander Callas gets ahead. So does... No, that's it. Yeah, Sander Callas gets ahead and will hopefully, in Yannick Bock's case, not get in the way. There's the margin, 11.5 seconds. So he's lost, what, 7.5 seconds by being undercut in those last few moments. This is a replay of what happened. Simicic was caught in two minds somewhat. I think Tyen was accidentally almost going down the inside there into turn 12 of Jake Dennehan. And thankfully it all worked out okay.
Yeah, because it very easily couldn't have done. One small mistake for Tyen, and he's locking up and tapping Dennehan round, and that would have been catastrophic. But you could see that Dennehan did not want to relinquish the position back to Simicic and just darted his way to the left. I don't even think Simicic wanted to re-overtake Dennehan as such. Like I say, it was just the overspeed that put him in that position. And with how powerful it all is, there it is. Here is Dennehan, though, what could be an important overtake on Brakshock, but very evidently lifting off. Does he want to get back on terms with his teammate?
Well, let's see here. On the way towards 20 laps to go in the Turkish Grand Prix. Very much at that stage now where you can go to the end after a pit stop. And so Jurnej Simicic will do exactly that. Now, the advantage for those guys on two-stop strategies is going to be that the guys currently in the lead will probably wait another 5 laps or so, maybe further, so they can gain a little bit on the undercut. Owen McGorgy did a 28.3 that last time round. Now, Yannick Bock hasn't been out there for long enough just yet for us to see an actual representative lap time, but if he can go a little bit quicker, or at least at the very, very least at the same speed as those leaders, then he will be in position to maybe take the race. I think it's going to be Yannick Bock on his own, though, because all the other two-stoppers pretty much got overtaken in that middle part of the race, which is pretty early if they're trying to make their strategy work.
Yeah, I think Bock has definitely got the best chance of those that are trying to do it, and fair play, because I don't think on raw pace he was able to match up to the top 3. Definitely wasn't in qualifying, whether that was a mistake or just pure pace. He tried to do something different from P7, and it could well pay off. It's a big risk, of course, when you lead in the championship to try and do something risky, but with only 3 rounds to go and a very tight and competitive championship and race clutch seemingly with no indication of slowing down anytime soon, Bok needs to take those risks and he needs to be maximising his points. And it's a chance, but it could well work out for him. It all depends as to how quickly the race clutch cars re-catch him and how easily they're able to find a way through, which based on the general consensus of this race into T12 shouldn't be too difficult. But the good news is that Bok definitely can have a decent chance of getting back at him. Maguli versus Hoyer at the back end, just outside the top 10.
That last lap wasn't good news for those trying to make 3 stops work today, by the way. Yannick Bok got down the inside of Sander Callis very easily indeed. Didn't get held up very much, and he's now only 10 seconds away from the front of the race. So a very important pass made by Yannick Bok there. And he didn't lose too much time in doing so either. So he's right in the game, is the championship leader. But look at the gap there. Ewan McGorgy's got even. Are we looking at 2-horse race maybe here? There's one 2-stop strategy driver who's a fair way ahead of the rest, in fact quite a long way ahead of the rest, and they're starting to become a 3-stop strategy driver who's quite a few seconds ahead of the rest too. Ewan McGorgy got his gap out to as big as 3 seconds, and it's creeping up to that again right now, 2.5 as we stand. Is he the only 3-stopper who can realistically win this race?
Think so. Maybe could be the case. It will definitely be between him and Bok. He was definitely helped though by Braxrock and Denahan and Tyne all being fought with Simoncic and the like, and sort of backing themselves up because that of course allowed him to initially get out of that DRS range and settle into his own rhythm out in front. Of course the gap has stabilised about 2.4 seconds, so it'll be interesting to see if Braxrock and Denahan can reclose that. Here goes Dennis Jordan to the inside of Martin Maguli, but shouldn't be too hard fought. He's able to effectively bring it back to the racing line to the inside of turn 12 and up into 12th place. Still out of position maybe for Dennis Jordan, what he'd expect, but trying to limit the damage after of course Ferrari have been in the wars so far this race. But another decent overtake made for Jordan, who's been making quite a few so far in tech.
Let's not pretend that the hard tyres, by the way, are bad tyres by any means. Not the last lap, but the time before. Yannick Bok did a 1:27.4. That is an outrageously quick time. 5/10 quicker than Ewan McGorgy's gone all day long, and around 300ths faster than Christian Pasquale, who's got had the fastest lap of the race so far, previous to that with a 27.5, but he's on the soft compound tyres, for goodness sake. That is how quick these hard tyres are realistically. That's what we get in FSR in 2024, not tyre compounds that are liable to falling off a cliff edge and all of a sudden not working for you anymore after a certain amount of laps, but tyres that you just need to get comfortable on and get the most speed out of while you've got them on your car. That's what FSR is all about in 2024, and it is very interesting to watch indeed. Here goes Jarl Tyne, the first of the final stops for the 3-stoppers, now happening for Netrex Grand Prix, who are looking to move up from their lowly spot in the Teams Championship, and Jarl Tyne is the man to do that, into the pit lane for a driver who's not only well versed in iRacing, in rFactor 2, sorry, but iRacing as well, having been a World Championship standard driver for 3 years before and during the pandemic. He gets up on the jacks, gets on the hard tyres, and leaves the pit lane in 9th position, 10th place, as Jone Simoncic just slipped through.
Yeah, so first up on the list for Tyne is going to be to tick off Simoncic, but a good choice going on to the hards. Of course, he has still got 16 laps of this race to run, but like we've seen and like we've said, they are still a fast tyre and they can go the distance. You can push on them without you having to worry about them falling off a cliff or overheating, and they have got some good pace behind them. I'd expect McGorgy and Denahan to probably extend their mediums and go for softs, but again, are they going to be able to get to the end comfortably with running some good pace? We don't know. Will they just go for the hards for the sake of it and just again try and go for a fast stint as possible? But nonetheless, Tyne is going to try and maximise his undercut relative to those around him and maximise his position. He's driven a fantastic race, it must be said. Not quite close enough, but still a good race nonetheless for Netrex.
Denahan has overtaken Braxrock at the front of the field. 2nd place now for Jake Denahan, as Jarl Tyne is watching this all unfolding in front of him. Fletcher getting overtaken by Simicic very easily. Tyne keeps his energy back and waits for another day, or another chance at least. There is Dennehan up to second place. I can only presume that was a slam dunk move into turn 12, but we'll find out nevertheless, as we've got 16 laps to go now in the race. There's the move. Not exactly a inspiring one to look at and watch. Not exactly Dennis Jordan earlier on in the race, was it? But it was effective and quick, which is what it needed to be for Jake Dennehan.
Doesn't need to be anything fancy. As long as she gets the job done, then, well, jobs are good. And basically, there's contact time onto the back end, trying to find his way through on, of course, Sergio Fletcher. A bit of contact, no damage done. Into T1 is ahead. Next up, of course, will be Jane Simicic, as Tyne needs to maximise this stage in the race, make the most of those hards while they're at their freshest, as the laps are ticking down thick and fast. Really not long left to go in this race.
Absolutely not. It's time for those final pit stops very shortly. We're not far away from them at all. And this is where the race is going to be won and lost. Wonder whether Jake Dennehan's still going to be a factor in this race. He's brought that gap below 2 seconds immediately to his teammate here. Personal best first sector, even despite the age of those medium compound tyres now. Wonder whether maybe there will be 2 race clutch cards to play as Jonas Braxok's just beginning to fall away from them. I believe, though, Braxok's into the pit lane again. The undercuts will continue for the Hungarian as Jarl Tyne makes an easy move into turn 12. Has he done enough with his undercut? He's lasted 2 laps before Braxok has come in. Braxok now on the hard compound tyres with 15 laps still to run. There's Tyne on the outside. You just saw him on the front straight there. It's going to be close between these two. Jarl Tyne round the outside, though, should be the one ahead, and is ahead. Braxok even behind Jane Simicic out the pit lane.
Yeah, so great undercut, great couple laps then for Jarl Tyne, and that puts him firmly in contention, I think, effectively on net pace with Dennehan to be very close to him. But Dennehan has taken a couple attempts out of McGorgy as well, so I think it could well be close with Jarl Tyne to the race clutch cars as well. Braxok will have slightly fresher rubber to go to the end with and can push on it as well, so he needs to be as close as possible to Tyne, and that means dispatching of Jane Simicic as soon as possible. But I think that is going to be definitely easier said than done.
Through turn 8 they go. 22 seconds off the lead. Owen McGorgy is at the head of the field, but I think the more important gap is the one to Yannick Bock. Jarl Tyne is 13 seconds behind him as things stand. Does McGorgy react, knowing that Braxok wasn't that far away from him? Neither race clutch driver reacts. They're waiting for later in the race. They're looking for a very short final stint, evidently.
Yeah, they're going to try and go as quick as possible and not really have to worry too much about conservation. But Yannick Bock is running some incredible pace. Of course, the longer McGorgy and Dennehan go, the less time they're going to have on fresh rubber to close that gap. They're going to be running out of opportunities sooner, but it could still well work. Of course, we'll have to wait and see. But the longer they're on those mediums, the more time they're losing relative to the likes of Tyne and Braxok, and of course Yannick Bock as well, who is ever closing. Out of the pit lane for Callas and for Pascal. Callas has run a fairly decent race as well, slowly but surely working his way through. Sergio Fletcher as well in for his final stop. Plenty of strategy, plenty of intrigue, and plenty of narratives to touch on over the course of this race.
Certainly is. Christian Pascal, by the way, will be the only driver to complete 2 stints on the soft compound tyres here today. One of the only drivers to employ them at all. He's currently down in 11th and the only Go Team driver who may well score points in today's Turkish Grand Prix. If you cast your minds back to 2017, the last time this race was raced in the Formula SimRacing World Championship, the top 6 were covered by 11.2 seconds, which is very close indeed after a 58-lap affair like this one. Just wonder whether we're seeing something similar today, just boiling up to a conclusion. Surely the race clutch have got to be in now, and they are indeed at 45 laps into the Turkish Grand Prix. This is the big moment. Race clutch into the pit lane for the final time.
This is crunch time. This is the most important stop. They need to nail it onto the soft compound tyres. No hesitation about that. They need to make sure they can get to the distance though, and they need to make sure they're ahead of Tyne, Braxok, and close enough to Yannick Bock. There is Jarl Tyne for Netrex. I think it's going to be slam dunk that he's going to be able to get ahead. In fact, there's McGorgy now able to drop the pit limiter, but there is Jarl Tyne, a good couple of seconds clear of the 2 race clutch cars, put on some fresh softs. What can they do from here to the end of the race?
Side by side, Dennehan and Braxock are close. They were side by side for a brief moment, but Dennehan gets ahead, and on those soft compound tyres, you'd be confident in his ability to stay away. Now, Yartine's undercut has very impressed me here, actually. He's 11 seconds away from Yannick Bock at the moment, but it just gives Owen McGorgy and Jake Dennehan an extra obstacle before they get to that main prize at the very front of the race.
Yeah, I can't see a situation where Tyne doesn't get overtaken by McGorgy or Dennehan. Maybe at least in the early stages, maybe the softs fall off later and Tyne is able to get back at them. But at least in the next couple of laps, Tyne is going to be effectively a sitting duck, at the very least, to McGorgy, who is going to be a bull chasing after that red flag, of course, because, well, Yannick Bock is up there and that gap is not, well, the lap time, or the lap count, I should say, is not slowing down in terms of how thick and fast that it's going to be ticking towards the checkered flag. He needs to get a move on as soon as possible and cannot wait around for Yartine to get out of his way. He needs to be proactive, needs to be aggressive and fight his way back to the top. Tom Stevens is in, so that makes it nice and clear. Bock leads from Tyne, McGorgy and Dennehan, of course, will be the top 4 in this race, with just 12 laps left to go. Braxock is there, but again on the hards, he's not really going to be too much of a contest to the 2 race clutch cars. It is just going to be a case of can they comfortably push those softs to the end.
Needs to be a second a lap pretty much for those guys on the soft compound tyres. In the latter 2 sectors, at last lap, they gained 0.6 of a second on Yannick Bock. So if that's sort of an average of what they're gaining per sector, then they are doing enough. But you just wonder whether the softs can retain that, whereas we do know the hards will be able to retain a good speed throughout the stint. And this is a problem too. Jarl Tyne being in the way is a big problem for Owen McGorgy and Jake Dennehan. Well within his rights, let's not forget here, to still be involved in this race. And from the looks of that, very much looks like he wants to be involved as he tries to hang on to a podium.
Yeah, which is fair enough. Again, for Yartine, he wants to be as far forward as possible, and he's driven a fantastic race. He firmly deserves it, and he needs to put every best foot forward. But here comes Owen McGorgy, slipstream, DRS, probably a bit of hybrid as well, and on the softs. It's no contest really by the time they reach the braking zone of turn 12, but look out for Yartine as he could still well be a decent adversary. 10.2 seconds left to go, 11 full laps until the checkered flag is, oh my goodness me, Mitchie Hoy getting involved with Sander Carlson, Dennis Jordan for this fight for P7. That's more likely for Jordan inside the top 10, but not a long time left to go in this race, and a lot of battles starting to form as people realise it's crunch time.
It is crunch time. Owen McGorgy sets a 26.9, a second and a half quicker than Yannick Bock, while making an overtake. That is very encouraging for Race Clutch, who are chasing Yannick Bock like there's no tomorrow. 11 laps, including the one they're on at the moment. 9 seconds is the margin. This is going to be an absolute nail-biter.
Is running his way through. There is Yannick Bock. What a race this is turning itself into. We knew full well this was going to come alive in the final stages. The fuse was lit and it's been catalysed, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is the 4th to last round of 2024's Formula Sim Racing World Championship. Dennehan is on the back of Jarl Tyne. He has been playing second fiddle to Owen McGorgy for the majority of this race as the pole sitter, but still firmly putting a good foot forward for the podium. Will it be enough to catch, pass and stay ahead of Yannick Bock? At the very least, it's an easy pass on Tyne as the closing speed was very, very quick as he works his way through long before the braking zone of turn 12. Tyne is behind, still there, waiting for something to go wrong.
Tyne may well just level off in 4th place now. Braxock would struggle to catch it, I'd have thought, as Callis and Jordan fight into 12. They were both impossibly late on the brakes, but pulled it up in time. And Sander Callis retained 7th. Into the final corner. It's a stupidly tight line. And here goes Christian Pascal, who will surely fancy overtaking both of them. Not for the fact they both used a bit of hybrid on the exit of the corner there, because they very much needed to get back up to speed again. Callis into 7th place though. Jordan floundering on some old tyres. He's got Pascal, Hoyer and Stevens right behind, and especially Pascal and Stevens on those soft compound tyres will fancy their chances here round the outside of turn 3 for Tom Stevens. Oh my goodness, how they've not crashed in this exchange, it's a mystery, but Tom Stevens is in the top 10.
What a battle that was. So aggressive, on the absolute limit of what's acceptable, and yet just within the confines of being hard but fair racing. And of course, that's what starts to happen when points are on offer and the checkered flag looms nearer and nearer. Pascal following through turn 8, but of course the dirty air as the car gets loaded up, it's hard to follow closely. Did a decent job of it. Here's Stevens as well on the softs. Now, of course, they are fighting amongst each other while still trying to carve their way through traffic. Jordan, as well, has proven that he will defend no matter what. Even if you're on a quicker tyre, he wants the safe place and wants the points for it. However, going to be a synced up with no DRS.
Look at this, free wide again. Dennis Jordan on the inside, through the middle goes Stevens, or Pascal, excuse me. Stevens tries to go through on all of them. He's got a great run into the penultimate corner and the final one as well. Tom Stevens through on his fellow soft tyre runner. Into 8th place he goes for Super Venturi. Their only driver remaining in this race after Jan Grankvist was unfortunately not able to take the start. It's 8th for Stevens in a wonderful exchange. Great driving between the three of them again, and somehow we're still all pointing in the right direction. Remarkable.
Yeah, great respect shown from everyone involved. Definitely takes a lot of courage to go for moves like this and still come out, for the most part, unscathed. This was Stevens, and that was the gap, and he just threaded the needle, didn't give up. I honestly thought he was going to go into the side of Pascal, but in the end was fine. Michi Hoyer wasn't really too eager to give him much space. Stevens again getting the squeeze into turn 12, but set up a nice up and under, got the drive, and then forced it all the way through to the end. Of course, the outside line is slightly better through this final corner, but was able to control the apex quite nicely and cover off the cutback from Christian Pascal.
And by the way, when you have a driver so close behind you like that, makes a cutback in the way we just saw all the more impressive. Really great move from Tom Stevens there as he moves up to 8th place. Now, how much further can he move through the field? I think the top 5 is pretty locked. What order those top 5 finish in is a different conversation, but I think the members of that top 5 will remain the same. So can Stevens get to Simičić, or will the 4-time champion hang on to a respectable result here this evening? So we go back up to the leaders, those who have got a chance to win the entire race today. 1.5 seconds has been gained by Ewan McGorgy every single lap since he exited the pit lane. In that case, he'll be there with 4 laps to go if this rate of closing retains.
Can he get the move done? Again, it's going to be the question. How much tyre is he going to have left? And of course, can he build enough of a gap before these softs start to fall off? The gap is 5 seconds. Of course, it's been a very, very swift close. But as the laps wear on, that obviously the rate at which that gap closes is going to ever so start to slow down before it then starts to plateau. And McGorgy wants to be through and gone by the time these softs start to plateau relative to the hards. 5 seconds is still a lot of time to go and catch, and Bock is not going to give it up easy either.
I think this might be the first lap where we've just seen it begin to plateau a little bit, because we've had those first 5 laps of pure madness. Now it might start to become a little bit more of a difficulty. But you've got to remember when talking about that the hard tyre is not going to be fresh by the end by any means. He's already into the, or was drifting towards the high 28s last time was Yannick Bock. Now, not quite the same this time. Ewan McGorgy does a very similar lap time, gets into the 27.3s, but the reason why McGorgy didn't gain quite as much on that lap round was that Yannick Bock picked up the pace a bit. Now, does that indicate to us for the remainder of this race that actually Yannick Bock has been preserving something for these final 10 laps just to give him something to defend with, a little bit of extra pace in the bag to try and pull out at the very end? Or was it just a very good lap that he all strung together very well? We'll never know, but the gap is coming down at a slower rate, or it did that time round anyway.
Yeah, last lap 28.2 for Bock, 27.3 for McGorgy, and yeah, it's the second lap, and again that's only going to get slower and slower. Once he's in DRS range, it might be a different story, because then he's latched in, and we've seen how quick cars can close by the time they reach turn 12. How much hybrid is he going to have left as well is another story. Bock as well will be saving as much as he possibly can, because I think it is almost not necessarily inevitable, but a decent chance that McGorgy is going to catch. Bock just needs to make sure that when he does, he's not going to be swiftly overtaken. There's a decent battle here. Sergio Fletcher getting pushed all the way nearly into the pit lane, but still found a way through nicely through turn 14 it should be, and then the Ferrari is able to get a nice swift up and under.
Yep, so I think that's Isaac Hillison, isn't it? Moving up to 13th place. Dennis Jordan still battling for places inside the top 10, unless he's dropped back a bit. Jordan? No, it's Hillison. And their battle continues here for 13th. These are for the minor points. Just 3 awarded to 13th place. And Sergio Fletcher would like those 3 points. He goes through on the outside. And, contact!
Oh.
Now, was Fletcher moving over? Was Hillison careless in the braking zone? That's going to be the argument after the race, but the one thing for sure, Hillison needs another pit stop.
Yeah, straight into the pit lane. At least it's not a decent distance to go, but the time loss is going to be fairly significant. Gillison, it was a late move, but it wasn't a huge move. I think Gillison thought there was going to be enough space for him to outbrake, and then of course Fletcher just ever so slightly moved over. Plenty of space to the left for Gillison to use, but he didn't, and in doing so, as Fletcher just ever so slightly moved over, Gillison then started to try and outbrake him and just accelerated straight into the back of him effectively. Not entirely sure as to where you can put the blame. I think Gillison, it was almost impossible for him to react there. Probably just one of those unfortunate things.
Might well be. We'll see how the stewards view it after the race. 5 laps to go when we get to the line. Last time round, it was only 7 temps gained by McGorgy because Bock was retaining the speed in the low to mid 28s. McGorgy's starting to drift to the high 27s now. What's the lap time looking like this time round for Yannick Bock, the championship leader? He goes over with a 28.3. Mid-27 again from McGorgy, so he picks up the pace. A bit of a better lap from him, but still only 8 temps gained. They're both looking for their 3rd race win in the history of the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. It's only Yannick Bock's 15th appearance, which will be, what, a 20% win ratio? It's only Owen McGorgy's 8th race. 3 out of 8 is even more than that, isn't it? More than a third of the races he's been in, he will have won. So, yeah, there you go. Some very high win percentages coming up, and it looks like one of these two is going to extend that and increase that percentage even further this afternoon.
Yeah, potentially so. Of course, it's either going to be 20% win rate for Yannick Bock or a 37.5% win rate for McGorgy. Of course, not so many appearances, so how valid is the data as such? But they've had a sensational season nonetheless. I've spent too much time with rFactor, I think, is the conclusion I'm going to take from that one, is how valid all the data is. But it's fine. Nonetheless, we've got only a couple more laps left to go. McGorgy is searching for it, and he's so close to getting after it. The question is, though, can he seal the deal? Bock and McGorgy are both equally going to be feeling the pressure.
I think Bock just needs to hold him off from that DRS range, and that's where things can get very, very difficult indeed. Now, 4 laps to go as they go over the line. 6 temps only gained by McGorgy that time round. Not as good of a lap as Bock's pace is being retained very, very well now. It was a bad lap a couple of laps ago when he was in the high 28s. I was getting concerned for him that he was going to get absolutely mauled by both Race Crutch drivers, actually, but he's put a stop to that very quickly. He's back in the low to mid 28s, exactly where he needs to be, while McGorgy is just beginning to lose that little bit of time compared to what he was beforehand. He needs to keep these softs going as quickly as possible, while also keeping them in an ideal working window for these final 4 laps.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about a little bit of management while also still trying to push as hard as you possibly can, because it's all good being on quick tyres for the first 5 laps of catching if you're not going to be quick enough to overtake at the end. Less than 2 seconds. He's about 1.3 off the DRS range, of course, of 0.7, which is the all-important thing that he needs to be behind Bock to get the DRS. Once he's got it, he'll exponentially close that gap and be right on his case. The question is, how able is Yannick Bock going to be to defend? How quickly can Dennehan then arrive on the scene? A bit further back as well, Janis Brakshock, Tyne, they're fighting for 4th place as well.
Yeah, Brakshock is securing 4th in the championship today, by the way. Not definitively, but he's doing a good job to do so. There was the pass. Simple in the DRS for the Hungarian. And he moves up to 4th position. A position he's finished in at the last race and the race before that, so he's on a run of them at the moment that may well continue. Simitic looks like he'll come under pressure right at the end here as well. Sander Callas and Tom Stevens looking to take late position from him as well.
To be fair to Simic, I mean, I know we down with the strategy a little bit earlier on, but a P6 from where he started, isn't bad going. If it was any other driver than Simicic, to be honest. I mean, it's a bad season for Simicic when a P6 is a fairly decent result. I mean, to be fair, he's gone on a P1, a P3 and a P5 so far this season, but even then, not exactly what we'd expect, but nonetheless, doing the best with what he's got. And a P6 would still be a decent result, I'm sure. It all depends, again, how much steam Callis and Stevens have got left in the tank. And of course, how many opportunities they're going to have as we're on to lap 56 of 58. So we've got 2.5 laps left before this race concludes.
I think McGorgy's only going to get one chance at this, by the way. And I think it might be on the last lap. It's a nerve-wracking situation. I don't think there's any time for games. In an ideal world, McGorgy would like both he and Denahan to overtake Bock, I would have thought. But he's not going to get that luxury. He's going to have to work hard for his own luxury of getting even one shot at this as they go over the line again. Another 0.6 of a second gained on that lap as Bock just slips into the mid-28s now. Slips into the 28.5, somewhere he's not been for a while. And McGorgy is still fighting hard to keep his lap times in the 127s. That's where they need to be for these final 2 laps. I think it's crucial for him as well to get the DRS by the time they're working their way down the back straight on this penultimate lap.
Yeah, if he's got hybrid to spare, which I doubt he has, he needs to use just a little bit, latch himself in DRS, close the gap to give himself the best opportunity going on to that final lap of the race. Of course, the closer he gets, the more affected he's going to be by that dirty air, particularly through the high demanding sections like this one right here. But it shouldn't be too bad. He should still be able to close quite nicely. He's so close, tantalisingly close to that all-important 0.7 gap, but he's got to get close enough. He needs a good run through this couple, or this chicane, the left then the right up the hill, but I don't think it's going to be enough in order to get the DRS run. He's going to need a fantastic final selector, and then, of course, an even better final lap.
The letterbox is closed. McGorgy is not getting DRS down the straight. Has Yannick Bock done enough to hang on here? He comes into the day with 6 points over McGorgy in the championship. A 10-point advantage with 3 rounds to go feels a lot better than just a 2-point advantage, which is what it would be if McGorgy gets through on this last lap. Just 14 corners remain of the Turkish Grand Prix in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship for 2024. A return for the first time in 7 years is delivering a last lap battle for the race win.
What else could we want? We've been suspended in anticipation for quite some time. The moment that we knew Yannick Bock was doing something different, slightly doubted him when he was starting down in P7, but he's fought his way through quite nicely, played the long game, waited for this race to come to him, and he's got 3/4 of a lap left to run in order to solidify it. Jake Denahan is a background thought, but McGorgy is within DRS range. He needs to capitalise. He will have one solid opportunity at this race lead. Bock knows that, McGorgy knows that. Last lap to decide the win.
It's been a special, unpredictable Formula Sim Racing World Championship season, and it's about to see its most dramatic race finish for weeks. McGorgy goes a bit wide at the crucial moment. He doesn't get the exit required out of turn 9 at all. Has he just thrown away a chance at a race win here? Goodness me, that was not a good turn 9 for Ewan McGorgy at all. He did the hard work through the corners. He got into the DRS position. He's very nearly gone for it from an impossible distance. He threw everything at that race, but Yannick Bock has carried on leading, and he's going to win. The Turkish Grand Prix is won by Yannick Bock by the barest of margins in the end. He hangs on with a 2-stop strategy with terrible tyres at the end. Great driving, great defence, survives the pressure and wins for the 3rd time in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship.
Wow. I am speechless. Yannick Bock doing everything he needs to do. Michi Hoyer has spun before the final corner. He gets back going again, but he's not going to finish inside the top 10. It'll be P11 for the FSR eSports team driver. He comes across the line in P11. Nicely done for him. Simicic, by the way, couldn't hold on to P6. Stevens found his way through. But what a costly mistake from McGorgy, and that could, well, not necessarily definitely a backstep, and it's moments like that that decide it. And this is right on the line that Stevens was able to get it.
Didn't see this. What was going on back here? Let's rewind all the way back to the start, shall we? Simicic started the lap in 6th place. He's lost out on a place as well. Sander Callis went round the outside into turn 12. Where does Stevens find a gap through here? Side-to-side contact in the penultimate corner. So Stevens just goes wide on the entry here and gets the best exit you've ever seen out of the final corner. He survives the swerve from Simoncic to try and keep him behind. It's a 3-wide photo finish for 6th place. And Tom Stevens gets there. What a remarkable finish between those three. I don't think I've seen a 3-wide photo finish for quite some time. That was remarkable. And then this, the pass on the way towards turn 3. Round the outside, this is the classic one now, isn't it? We're quite used to this. In towards turn 4 as well. And he eventually got through. But goodness me, what a battle that was. That while we were focusing on the goings on for the race win, Tom Stevens was making his way up to 6th place. Apologies, that wasn't the last lap. It wasn't a photo finish, but it was a very, very dramatic pass indeed through the first couple of corners. And here's the moment for the lead.
Yeah, it was a costly one. A very, very costly one indeed from McGorgy. He knew he had one chance, and he needed to give everything through that sequence, the left, then the right, but just got that twitch, unsettled the car. Of course, we'll see it in a couple of moments' time. He's close, he's in the slipstream, and if it wasn't for this, he could well have contested for the lead. Would he have won? We'll never know. But Yannick Bock kept it nice and tidy, missed the first part of the apex ever so slightly, caught that curve, the car was then unsettled, tried to put the power down, didn't have the grip, and on arguably the most important run of his entire race, didn't have enough, and then just tries to scare Yannick Bock, I suppose, by trying to launch this almighty send to the inside, but Bock was unfazed, was confident that he was going to keep this victory, and what an important one for the championship it is. I said it was going to be a race of damage limitation, trying to minimise what Race Clutch were able to gain, but in the end he was able to gain 3 points on McGorgy, and that is going to be so vital with 3 rounds to go.
Yeah, he's turned it around, and Yannick Bock extends his championship lead to double figures again. He wins the Turkish Grand Prix ahead of Owen McGorgy, with Jake Denham rounding out a double Race Clutch podium. It's Jonas Praksuk and Joel Tyne in the top 5, with Tom Stevens making that double pass late on to finish 6th ahead of Jonas Simoncic. Sander Callis, Christian Pascal and Dennis Jordan round out the top 10. Richie Hoyer dropped out of the top 10 there on that very final lap due to the spin that we saw the back end of. He finished 11th ahead of Sergio Fletcher. Giordano Valeriano, Martin Mergli and Philip Pushka round out the points-paying positions. Zoltar Giannis and Stoyan Barbakov were the final drivers to finish. Isaac Hilson didn't after losing his front wing on the way down towards turn 12. Cosmo Pisuto crashed at turn 8. Manuel Biancalula crashed at turn 12 with Kostas Van Vukas. And Jan Granqvist couldn't take the start as a result of an untimely disconnection. So that is it for 58 laps of racing at the Turkish Grand Prix. What a race we've seen, with drama right the way to the final lap. Let's bring in Yannick Bock, who was a prime candidate in that late action. Yannick, welcome into the booth. Good to have you with us. Fantastic for us to watch. I can't imagine it was enjoyable for you to drive until the very end, I suppose, when you knew that the race win was yours. Tell us your feelings in those final 10 laps as Owen was catching you. Did you feel as if you had enough to hang on?
I mean, yeah, it was very tense. I pushed as much as I can. I drained the battery quite early to have like the gap. But yeah, I think they'll run out of tires in the end, and I got lucky and that he was like not near enough in the last lap and had a snap, and then I could bring it home.
You qualified quite a few positions behind him. Did that mean that you went for the two-stop strategy, or were you always going to do that no matter where you qualified?
Actually, I planned for the two-stop, but yeah, obviously, I think we built a bit of a race setup, and I think a lot of guys ran higher wings than us, and yeah, I think this played in our hands in the race, and I had good tire management, and so I was keen to do the two-stop because I think it was faster. But yeah, in the end, it worked out for me quite well, but it was too close for me.
Yeah, too close for comfort,
Yes.
for sure. How are you feeling about those final few rounds now with a 10-point championship lead?
I don't know. Just watching from race to race, I try to be as good as prepared like today, and yeah, try to win every round basically.
So you can do. Congratulations, Yannick, on the win here tonight, and thanks for coming to chat to us as well.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Yannick Bock there, the race winner in the Turkish Grand Prix tonight, just ahead of Owen McGorgy, who also joins us now. Welcome in, Owen. Good to have you with us again. So close to your third Formula Sim Racing World Championship win. Instead, it's your second place, both times to Yannick Bock, both times with dramatic finishes as well. How are you feeling after that race?
I'm exhausted. I'm not very happy. But you know, that's racing. I felt like it should have been much easier than that. But Yannick, I don't know how he does it. The straps that he pulls out sometimes are just. I don't get how he goes so long on the tires. It's incredible.
Does that give you any cause for concern for the final few rounds? Because we're not going to have I suppose we do have Japan, which might be a bit difficult to overtake, but does that, on these more traditional Grand Prix circuits that we've got to end the season, including this one and the final few rounds as well, does that give you some cause for concern? Because your strategies do often rely on, high speed, lots of overtakes and all that kind of exciting stuff for us to watch. But does it give you concern as far as your championship chances go?
Maybe a little bit of concern, yes, but also I think if we just put in more practice than we're doing, and Jake doesn't have a VEC now, so if we just hammer in the laps together, I think no matter the strat, as long as it's not absolutely awful, we can have the pace over Yannick and hopefully everyone else. But maybe we'll find something to do with the setup or just with driving to be able to save the tires. But I don't think we're in too bad of a place.
Absolutely, and of course you're steaming ahead in the team's championship as well at the moment, which can only be a good thing as a team. Thanks very much for coming to chat to us again, and congratulations on second place tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, McGorgy there, the second place driver, ahead of his teammate Jake Dennehan, whose best Max Verstappen impression gets him a third place at the Turkish Grand Prix. Welcome in, Jake. Good to have you with us. How are you feeling after that one? A couple of seconds away from where the action was at the very end there. You finished at, 2.7 off the win. Is there a feeling of sort of you could have got more out of today, or are you taking your hat off to the winner here after that race?
Yeah, of course. Yannick is insane for making that strategy work. Only Yannick can do something like this, and it's happened before to us in Silverstone, where he pulled off a stop less than us. We went for the more aggressive strategy because I think that's what we were most comfortable with. And again, it didn't work, but I think the strategy was okay. It's just we had kind of the wrong cars ahead of us. They were all on two stops and they were all defending pretty hard. But yeah, slightly disappointed and also slightly tired after this weekend.
Absolutely. Well, I was going to ask about that because it's been a long virtual endurance championship season, of course, culminating in the 24 Hours of Le Mans earlier on, which you were part of the winning team. So congratulations on that, and a double podium for you this weekend, which you must be excited for. But did you, or pleased about, I should say, do you feel as if, though, it just interrupted your preparation for this race a little bit more, maybe, than some of the other rounds?
Yeah, definitely. I think some more time on FSR probably should have been spent because I already have a great team in VEC that can carry me. So, yeah, probably should have shifted my attention slightly more towards FSR. But I kind of did the most of what I could do. I made some setup changes just before the race because I haven't touched the car since like Thursday, so yeah, it all felt kind of new to me again.
Well, you are at 31 points off the championship lead now, with Yannick having won the race, so still very much in the conversation with 3 rounds to go. Congratulations on your win over the weekend, but third place as well here tonight in FSR as well, and thanks very much for coming to chat to us.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks so much. Jake Dennehan there, third place tonight in the Turkish Grand Prix. Well, Zach, that was a very exciting for 58 laps. I think we probably could have taken or left the first 20, which were not especially the most exciting, but it was just gearing us up for a very exciting second half, culminating, of course, in last lap drama right at the very end. A very exciting race in the end.
It was, and again, we said that the potential was there, the tension was there, pretty much from the start of the race. We knew that some people were going to try something different. How close qualifying was as well. The entire field separated by less than a second. The ingredients were there. it just took a while for it to get that momentum and build itself up. And it was all just a waiting game. Everyone was doing their own thing until that final, sprint to the finish when, it really started to matter. Track position really started to be important, because it doesn't matter if you lead every other lap, as long as if you don't lead across the checkered flag as such. And that's really where, things got real. People were pushing very, very hard. And in the end, Bok was able to hang on. It was a very good effort from Race Clutch, but yeah, in the end, not quite enough. And what a championship it's turning itself into as well. 3 more rounds for 2024.
Yeah, one of the most unpredictable we've had for quite some time, I've got to say, in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. I don't think we could have predicted very much of what's gone on so far, so make sure you tune in again. It's only 1 week off until we go to Spa for the 8th round of our World Championship for 2024. And as I say, we're only 2 months and 2 days away from our finale at Japan. So make sure you stay tuned and make sure you tune in again, I should say, for the final few rounds of the championship. All 3 of those final rounds, of course, containing Academy and Pro racing before the World Championship action comes on the Sunday evening as well. So I look forward to your company then. A big thanks to everyone who's been tuned in over the course of the evening. Hope you've enjoyed it. I've been Ewan O'Leary alongside Zach Sweeney. Cam Rodger's been behind the cameras here tonight. And until we see you in a fortnight for the Belgian Grand Prix, it's goodbye for now.
Hello, I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to
Who's going to break Lace's world title?
For my Gosby! Oh, he's done it! And
Look at these 2 go.
Itchy Hoy's going to do it! His first victory!
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been.